Morning, everyone.
Morning.
We'd like to call to order the Board of Education annual budget meeting for February 1st, 2025, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to
the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I don't see anybody in the audience, so it doesn't look like we're going to be having any public comment today, but I'll give it a second in case someone wants to walk in. Okay, doesn't look like anybody's here, so we'll move on. We'll close public comment. Before we get started, I just want to thank you all for being here. I thank the staff for being here. This is an important part of our work, and for you all to be here on a day off, we're greatly appreciative of your time and all the work that you put into getting this project ready for us. This is, like I said, probably the most important thing we do as board members. You make this job a lot easier for us, so thank you all for being here. We're going to go through the budget as we did last year, same process as always. We'll go through line by line. I would ask if you have any questions, wait till Kathy's done presenting on that line item, or Dan is done presenting on that line item before you ask the question. And then remember, too, this is a preliminary approval. This is not a final approval. So there'll be an opportunity, if you have questions that are more substantive, to ask them today and have them come back to us on Monday with those answers. So if there's something that's a little bit more than just a quick, can you clarify something? If there's something more detailed, feel free to ask. You're absolutely welcome. All questions are welcome. But the ones that are more challenging, we'll have answers for on Monday night when we make our final approvals. I want to say also that Kathy came in at a recommended 5.6. This is just to recognize that this is not the number that came to her from the buildings. This is the work of Kathy and the DLC to get the budget to a place that we can at least begin to have a conversation in good faith with the town council about what we need to spend to teach our kids next year. With that being stated, Kathy, I'll turn this over to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good morning, Board of Education members and our school district community, our Farmington community. It's my pleasure to present the 2025-2026 Superintendent's recommended budget. The budget development process in Farmington is grounded in our strategic improvement documents each year, and this alignment is critical to ensure our financial plan advances the implementation of our core improvement documents across all schools and classrooms. Given our innovative programming and impressive outcomes, this alignment has continued to serve our community, our families, and students well. From initial school submissions to the refinement of our operating budget through school and program reviews of all requests, zero-based budgeting practices were utilized. This slide shows Farmington's mission statement, which promotes personal and academic excellence for all students, as well as the acquisition of all the skills and dispositions outlined within our vision of the Global Citizen, or VOGC, ensuring Farmington students lead the way now and in the future. Our core improvement documents are listed on this slide. They serve as a strong foundation for strategic planning, teacher and administrator goal setting, hiring and recruiting, professional development, teaching and learning operations, as well as today's recommendation or our financial plan. Our what is our VOGC? Our VOGC is the center of our school and program development plans, ensuring all students acquire the grade level content as well as the skills and dispositions of the VOGC through deeper learning experiences across all grade levels and programs. The how is our instructional model, the framework for teaching and learning implemented across all classrooms and programs. It is how we achieve the VOGC for every student in nurturing learning environments that promote students' curiosity, wonder, and engagement in instructional tasks that have meaning and value to the learner. Our why, our core beliefs, actions, excellence, equity, mindset, teamwork, and well-being matter within the Farmington Public Schools. With our core improvement documents at the forefront of the development of this budget, here are the major themes or drivers of the 2025-2026 budget. The superintendent's recommended budget maintains and advances academic excellence through innovative programming pre-K-12, promotes continuous improvement within operations and student-centered teaching, learning, and programming, supports contractual increases across many budget lines, more specifically in the areas of personnel, facilities, transportation, and all other contracted services, supports increased student need in the areas of academic and social emotional well-being, addresses restoration of funding due to 2024-2025 budget reductions, addresses significant cost increases across supply, equipment, energy, and many other accounts due to inflation, addresses continued state and federal legislative mandates required by law, factors in other grant funding to offset costs to mitigate the overall increase in the operating budget, contains costs through zero-based budgeting, reductions and efficiencies to maintain and advance current programming, and maintains class size levels in accordance with Board of Education policy. This slide provides an overview of the recommended operating budget for 25-26. The total recommended budget amount is $83,995,261 for a dollar increase of $4,451,022, or a percent increase over 24-25 of 5.6%. When we engage in the budget book review, we will share some positive news that was finalized after the budget books were distributed in the self-insurance account. That will result in a reduction in the self-insurance account and, in turn, an overall decrease in the budget. Here are the major drivers by series specifically related to the 5.6% increase. In salaries, 2.9% of the 5.6% increase reflects personnel, contractual increases, class size, increased student need, and movement from grant funding to the operating budget. In services, 1.59% of the 5.6% increase reflects the transportation contract, but more specifically, increases in specialized transportation, contracted services, major projects and maintenance, tuition for increased outplacements and electricity. Approximately 60% of this increase within the services series is due to increased special education needs. In supplies, 0.04% of the 5.6% increase reflects restoration of funding of supplies due to 24-25 budget reductions and cost increases due to the economy. And equipment, 0.04% of the 5.6% increase reflects restoration of funding of equipment due to 24-25 budget reductions and cost increases due to the economy. In health insurance and liability insurance, 1.03% of the 5.6% increase reflects self-insurance claim trends and projections and liability insurance due to the higher cost of our new high school. However, we have positive news to share in this line due to our collaboration with the town, and that will be something that Assistant Superintendent Dan Zatoon will review during our page-by-page review. For a current increase of 5.6% over the 24-25 budget. Farmington has a tradition of leading the way in education. Here are some favorable academic accomplishments that reflect the taxpayers' investment in our school district. This slide reflects the exemplary work of our students, our faculty, staff, and administrators, as well as our focus on innovative and continuous strategic improvement efforts aligned to our core improvement documents. This slide highlights additional accomplishments in the areas of academics and athletics. Here are some additional notable accomplishments that position Farmington as a leading school district in the areas of music and art education. The last three slides exemplify our many and varied accomplishments as a school district, which are directly attributed to our community's investment in our schools through our annual budget. This slide, along with the previous three slides, show the school district's commitment to excellence in student outcomes coupled with fiscal responsibility. The rankings listed on this slide are statewide, including all school districts, with one spending the most and 166 spending the least. It is important to note that Farmington ranks 107 in the most up-to-date per-pupil expenditures reported by the Connecticut State Department of Education, as compared to all other Connecticut school districts, which is $985 less per pupil than the state per-pupil average, or a difference of approximately $4 million. Although we rank 107 in per-pupil expenditures, our schools and school districts consistently rank at the top of the leading schools and school districts in Connecticut and beyond across a variety of state and national rankings and outcomes. Here are some examples of our collective commitment to cost containment and avoidance, as well as budget reductions. The first budget driver is salaries, the 100 series, which accounts for 65% of the total recommended budget. The budget increase in salaries line is 4.39% and reflects negotiated contractual obligations and an increase of 2.9 certified full-time equivalent, or FTE, based on class size and student need, and an increase of 10.82 in non-certified FTE to address improvement in operations, staffing, moving off of grants, shifting of current funding from one budget line to another, and student need. This series reflects all of our association's salary increases for the coming year, which are highlighted on this slide. Here are the certified teacher and faculty full-time equivalent, or FTE, increases within the budget that total 2.9 FTEs. The FTE increases described on this slide were reviewed at our last board meeting by Assistant Superintendent Veronica Rusek. As discussed at Monday's board meeting, as we move through the budget book, you will see current FTEs transferring from East Farms and other locations to Noah Wallace due to shifts in enrollment to balance enrollment across our elementary schools. This slide reflects non-certified staffing increases totaling 10.82 FTE to address improvement in operations, staffing, moving off grants, shifting of current funding from one budget line to another, and student need, which include a 0.5 FTE clerical support and a 0.5 coordinator for security, registration, and residency. These two positions were reduced in the 24-25 budget process to 0.5 FTE for each position. This 1.0 FTE increase between the two positions will create full-year, full-time positions for 25-26. 7.2 FTEs for paraprofessionals reflect greater student need in the area of special education, totaling 2.19 FTE, with an additional 5.1 FTEs moving off the IDEA grant onto the operating budget. One FHS monitor that accounts for 0.825 FTE is being reduced from this budget due to the completion of the FHS facility in the fall of 2025 and anticipated completion of the central office fieldhouse project in the spring of 2025. A 1.0 FTE for a coordinator of technology is offset by a reduction of 0.5 in technology end user position. A 1.0 FTE for occupational therapist under nurses and related services account is a cost-neutral position because we reduced account 320 by $100,000 to cover the salary for this position. An increase of 2.0 FTEs in custodians is offset by the elimination of 2 driver positions and movement of the cost of these positions from the transportation account, reclassifying these positions from drivers to custodians. The next budget driver is insurance, or the 200 series, which accounts for 15% of the total recommended budget, with a 6.61% increase driven by claim trends. The 200 series includes employee health benefits, providing 100% of paid claims with a high deductible HSA and coinsurance, as well as life insurance and long-term disability costs. As noted previously in this presentation, we have been working with the town on some potential savings in self-insurance. After the budget books were distributed, we received some good news to adjust the self-insurance account and reduce the overall budget increase. We will discuss this further when reviewing the health insurance account for the board's possible action. Services is the next budget driver, the 300 series, which accounts for 15% of the total recommended budget. This is a very volatile series of the budget due to the categories within this series. There's an increase of 10.39% in the services series. This account provides for special services consultation services and tuition costs for outplacements, major facility projects, K-8 summer school, and technology-based operational systems, as well as professional development. The increase is driven by special services costs due to student need, which was reviewed at our last board meeting during the preliminary special services presentation, as well as an account supporting transportation services, facilities, and electricity. There is also a restoration of funding across areas due to reductions in the 24-25 budget and increased cost across many areas of the services account due to the economy. The next series is supplies, or the 400 series, which accounts for 3% of the total recommended budget. The supplies series reflects a slight increase of a 1.23% for some restoration of supply funding due to budget reductions in the 24-25 budget approval process and increased cost across all areas of supply series due to the economy. The 500 series or equipment series accounts for 1% of the total recommended budget and reflects an increase of 7.37% due to the need for equipment, restoration of reductions in equipment in the 24-25 budget, and increased costs due to the economy. Dues and fees, or the 600 series, accounts for less than 1% of the total recommended budget and shows a 15.54% increase. This account includes memberships in organizations that support our strategic improvement efforts. This account also includes Town of Farmington's negotiated liability, umbrella, and motor vehicle insurance for the school district. Insurance costs for the new high school is the main driver of the increase in this series. Here is a view of the entire superintendent's recommended operating budget, all of which I reviewed within this budget presentation. In summary, the 2025-2026 recommended budget maintains current programming and is responsive to our students' needs. Many Connecticut school districts are facing similar or larger budget increases in 25-26, and we are no exception. The recommended budget advances academic excellence while maintaining current programming and services pre-K-12. The budget supports contractual increases across many budget lines, specifically in the areas of personnel, facilities, transportation, and contracted services. Special services is a particular driver of this budget across various accounts and is a similar driver across all Connecticut school districts due to student need, especially with fluctuation of state-level grant funding. We are also restoring funding across several accounts due to 24-25 budget reductions. We have implemented zero-based budgeting, factored in projected grant budgets, grant funding, as well as reallocation of funding within the operating budget to offset costs to mitigate the overall increase in this budget. I want to also note that inflation is impacting costs across most budget lines and accounts. The fiscal information presented and reported when we look at district and student achievement results represent a value-added approach to strategic planning, improvement, and budget development. At all times, our strategic improvement efforts and financial plan are centered upon our students, their needs, and their future as self-aware individuals, empowered learners, disciplined thinkers, engaged collaborators, and civic-minded contributors. I extend my sincere appreciation to our central office leaders and our team, as well as our DLC members for their hard work and many contributions to the budget development process. Thank you for your attention to this presentation and your thoughtful review of the recommended 2025-2026 superintendent's recommended budget at today's budget workshop. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. All right. That being said, we can begin our agenda. We will start in the 100 series. Dan.
Great. Thanks, everybody. Excited to be part of this process and first time go around in there. So a couple things just to kind of ground us all in the work for today is first, one of the documents that's provided for you, it's a single sheet. This came out of a recommendation of our Board of Ed meeting on Monday. It's a little acronym guide. So when we start saying things like IDEA or PPT, IEP, there's a little cheat sheet for in there, so feel free. So it's a single sheet, so it might kind of blended in there, but let me know if you're having difficulty finding it. Yes.
It was right on the bottom. It's at the bottom. No, I put it here's the end. I think it's on this. Yeah, it's not in the book.
And so if memory serves me right, or at least watching old YouTube videos of these budget meetings, everyone here in the room was here last year, so I'm going to go quickly with the overview because I think everyone, it's no different than the Scott presentation. I was even going to try to find that white sweatshirt he wore last year, just to kind of keep the theme going in there. So first, you're going to find the superintendent's opening budget message, kind of highlighted there by that presentation. You know, the four major themes: cost efficiencies, containment and avoidance, academic excellence and equitable opportunity, economy-driven costs, and increased student need impacting costs and special services. You'll see that we have the table of contents through there, budget summary, pie chart, which will kind of be the theme of each of those sections, and then the budget development philosophy, talking about, as Kathy had mentioned, the zero-based budgeting. We go through from there the core documents that really guide much of what we do on a daily basis, and then the budget summary by objects. Each budget section will start with a pie chart summarizing the impact of the objects in relation to the rest of the budget, and the board will have a motion for each page, and then we'll share highlights, and I can answer questions per section. And then finally, at the end, you're going to see those support sections. Once again, more information is kind of references. I'm not going to dive too deep into them, but they're there, and maybe we might mention them just as kind of frameworks for other information. And before we begin, just want to thank, as Bill did, thank the entire team who helped put together this book, but also, you know, being financial stewards of the taxpayer dollars, you know, the budget process, while we're focusing on here, is really a daily process, really looking every day at how do we become more efficient, how do we do things. And so we're, you know, starting on July 1st, throughout the whole year is really, so while we're deep into the planning for next year, every day is really focusing on the budget and making sure that we're being responsible with the taxpayer dollars. Start off with the 100 series, salaries. This accounts, obviously, the largest part of the budget, accounting for 65% of the total recommended budget. The budget increase in the salary line documented here is 4.39% and reflects negotiated contractual obligations, an increase of 2.9 certified full-time equivalents, or FTE, it's probably on the acronym page, based on class size and student need, and an increase of 10.82 in non-certified FTE to address improvements in operations, staff moving off grants, shifting of current funding from one budget line to another, and student need. The series reflects all of the association's salary increases for the coming year, which are going to be highlighted on the page. There will be a couple lines where we're making some adjustments. Once again, the budget process is this, you know, ever-changing things, and so sometimes we've gotten some adjustments, some retirement announcements, and various things. So we'll go through that as we get into each of the lines. And so, like I said, some of those numbers may be changing slightly.
Yeah, we'll start on page, okay, I'm sorry. All right, I didn't know if you wanted to do it or not, but yeah, we'll start with Object 111, Central Office.
So central office is, am I okay with the mic? So I don't have to keep, that's good, perfect. To provide educational leadership and administration necessary to execute Board of Education policies through the Office of Superintendents of Schools, Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum Instruction, and Assistant Superintendent of Finance and Operations.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any questions? Angela?
So just an obvious question for me is, you're new, Dan, to your position, Veronica's new to her position. We have the news that Kathy will be leaving as well. I'd have to imagine there's, like, these are all new people, which is all good. Like, I'm not suggesting cutting anyone's budget, nothing like that. But I'd have to assume the total of all, like, new is less than the total of all veteran, people that have been here. So to see an increase in that, I was just surprised. I don't know, can someone speak to that?
So typically, administrative positions that might not be in the union, so for Veronica and I not being in FASA, which is the administrative union, would just follow, their increases and, either whether it be step or agreed upon contracts there. So whatever the salaries from there, and then you adjust them up there. As far as obviously, for, the superintendent and that piece of it, that may have some budget implications down the road that might cause some adjustments there. But at this point, we wouldn't have any good information to be able to make an educated guess of what that impact would be.
Okay.
Okay.
I just interpret it as their raises. It's just their raises, I think that's what that is, right?
Yeah.
That's why. Okay. No other questions? All those in favor of tentative approval of object 111, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Actually, no, it's not.
Well, you need a motion.
Oh, we need a motion.
Need a
Sorry.
motion. I was like,
I didn't get the motion.
So Bill, can you just
Jumping ahead.
explain, we're gonna do every single, so like 111 is like just the central office, so
100%.
that'll be approved,
page.
and then each one gets a motion and a
Right, a tentative approval.
tentative.
Right, I'm sorry, I need a motion to, I'm sorry.
Okay.
It's early.
Well, you'll get into.
For coffee.
You'll get into the.
Okay, thanks, boss.
I know, I got to poke them. I need to
You need to be sitting
like,
next to
wait,
me. No. Can I get a motion to approve item 111?
approve page 1.
Page one. I can do it like that? Okay.
Right here.
Come on, Kathy.
No,
To tentatively approve, can I get a motion to tentatively approve page 1, central office salaries in the amount of $659,667?
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, that's my script.
no.
I understand.
Get the man some more coffee.
It's something.
Bill, one more question, so you're gonna go line by line, but then is there a final vote for like all of salaries too? There is, so it's,
Well, is there a vote?
Well, when you go to, there are some overall pages and with the FTE levels that are included, and by tentatively approving, you're tentatively approving all of those. So you'll see them, they're called buff pages up ahead. There's one for certified, there's one all in, non-certified and certified. And when we open to that page, any questions you have from what I presented, because you've seen the certified, you haven't seen the non-certified, so you may have some questions.
Okay.
You're also gonna see on those pages a lot of movement that is not a budget impact, but a lot of movement of FTE, because we're transferring individuals from other positions, I won't say individuals, positions from East Farm and some other schools to NOAA because of the enrollment shift. That's why I signaled that, because it's an unusual year. It was a lot of work just to try to get to a place where we knew which positions would be moving or which FTE would be moving and what the enrollment levels would be like. And we would say, that's always fluid because we have new students coming in all the time and registering. So we keep an eye on it until we open school, and little shifts can be made during that time too.
okay, thank you.
Yep.
So on to page 2.
Principals?
Yeah.
So once again, with the understanding there on the bottom there, and most of the increase there is attributed to the 2.75% contract increase through the FAFSA contract, and then any step increases for any staff members.
Okay. Any questions? Can I get a motion to tentatively approve page 2 principals in the amount of $2,519,135?
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. On to page 3, no, page 4, right? Or 5? 4. Page 4. Dan?
So 4 is the preliminary professional staffing. This was, we went over this at the Monday's Board of Education meeting, so I'll kind of, if there's any additional questions.
Is this related to 113? Is that where you're line 113, which is the next one, or is this a separate? the teachers?
Yes, this would have, the impact in there
A certified.
Okay,
of certified.
so I do have questions on that one.
Sure.
So I understand, I had this question last year, so if you watched the YouTube video, you may be prepared for this. I understand the contractual obligations 100%, I understand all of that. But if we're gonna say that this is zero-based budgeting, to me, that's like starting, at the bottom and then building up from there. Consistently in this bucket, and I'm looking at it at like the total salary line, so if we go into just the teacher salary, I can as well. But 2 years ago on the total salary line, there was a surplus at the end of the fiscal, so ending in June, of $1.2 million. This year, at the end of, for this particular salary line, so the 100 series, there was almost a surplus of $900,000. And if you look the majority of those buckets is made up of the teacher line. Obviously, there's different puts and takes. So the teacher line itself 2 years ago was almost $800,000 in surplus, and last year, $600,000 in surplus. So I just have a hard time reconciling how, we were $600,000 over. And again, I understand, because I know the answer is probably going to be it's offset by subs and it's offset by things below. However, like if I'm being asked to vote on a zero-based budget for this line item, I just don't know how we could have $600,000 left over, $800,000 left over, plus an additional 2.9 FTE for this year, and how, are we too conservative somewhere? I'm not even suggesting, to me, this is just a numbers thing. I'm not suggesting eliminating anything. It just seems like somewhere our assumptions are too conservative, even given the contractual obligation increase and all of that. And then one more thing to add on, and then I'll let you go. I did see in the upcoming meeting on Monday, there was some retirements. So I'm assuming those steps are probably at all of those people seem to have 20 plus to 30 years of, work with us. I'm assuming the people we hire are going to be at much lower steps. So there's got to be a savings there too.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So all of that together, I just personally, this is me, I don't know how to reconcile all that. So help me reconcile it.
Sure, absolutely. So a couple things. The retirement piece we'll talk, if you don't mind, once we get to page 5, because we'll talk specifics in there. But the piece to the teacher's salary line, it's a fair question, right? That you look at every year there. I think for the reason though that we do zero-based budgeting, it leads us to this, right? So to do the zero-based budgeting, you look at all the staff that you are hiring and then you move them over on either steps or contractual increases, and then it gives a number. And so then even though historically you'll see that we'll finish, in the black on there, you from a responsible budgeting standpoint, you need to account for the fact that perfect storm of now you really don't have, FMLA leaves or any other types of long-term leaves that typically happen, right? But then if, just like with self-insurance, if you have a thing where all of a sudden you have a catastrophic year, here it's almost the opposite. If you have this perfect year where nobody leaves, then you leave yourself potentially, if you start kind of estimating based on previous history, the average has been, then you leave yourself potentially short on the budget. So it's a tricky thing. And so the way we try to adjust it and try to be good financial stewards is looking at, and you'll see eventually the subline. The subline is flat, right? The reality is if we go based on historical averages, that you would have to probably increase that number substantially to factor that in. But we feel comfortable under budgeting that, knowing that historically that piece of it in the teacher salary will kind of help offset that. So I don't know if that, and so we try to find other areas where we kind of do that. But like I said, trying to stay true to the zero-based budgeting, you really just, here's your staff, Ann in the HR office does a really great job of, moving everybody and say, okay, this would be our expectations if, we had perfect attendance throughout the, and there were no other leaves or anything else along those lines. Yeah, please.
Just as a process, I'll just outline the steps, just so hopefully there's an understanding of how much money we actually take out of the line. This year alone, it's just that line is what? $36,184,279. When you think of 600,000 being still kind of as a balance at the end of this year, that's a pretty small percentage when you look at that kind of money, and it could reflect 6 teachers. Our teachers at the highest level are over 100,000 in their salary. So this, but then we under budget for subs. If we said we're going to fully budget for every teacher, and then we're going to fully budget for every kind of possibility in subs, I think that would be a point, because we're over budgeting in the sub line. What happens is there are many FMLAs, there are many teachers who'd have to take leave. It's unexpected. I could never predict the future. However, that offset ends up helping us in the sub line. So when we start the budget, Anne, our HR person, brings everyone forward to the next year, unless we are cutting a position or something like that. So brings everyone forward. Then we get all of the retirements and reduce the teacher line, because exactly what you said, they might make less. I will tell you, in one area they will not, and that is in special services. We will pay sometimes more than what we've budgeted. So we're careful about special education positions. It's a huge area of need in the state. We don't have enough teachers in that area, so we're all really trying to recruit those individuals. So we've brought everyone forward. We reduced all the retirements. Then we underfund the budget by a teacher turnover, like you're saying, estimating about 150,000. So right now, this line is under budgeted by 150,000, and the sub line is under budgeted by a significant amount, because I don't know what's going to happen. We may, if a year came where we didn't have one leave, sub line would be great, teacher line would be expended fully. That would never happen, because life happens to our employees. And so I want to say that it's a very clear step-by-step process, because we do want to bring in this line at a place that doesn't overburden our taxpayers. So we do all those things before it's brought to you. And you'll see some of that even today. There's a little more, because our teachers have till today to tell us they're retiring. So we could get an email today.
Check my email.
Yes. So the budget process and our contracts sometimes might not totally line up, but that's generally what we do.
I just want to add to it, there have been times historically where that's actually happened, where we've had these retirements, and this is actually one of the earliest budget sessions we've ever had, right? Normally, we're usually meeting, will be the following week, so we'd have those retirements in. And I can remember having conversations where the initial number will change because of a retirement that comes in. So I think what Kathy's saying is that this line is actually under budgeted, right? That the sub line is always flat, and that and so I understand that someone looking at this might think, oh, they're overspending because there's always this surplus, when it's actually kind of the opposite of that. So that's how I interpret that. But
And-
it's an excellent
It
question,
is.
because if
It's a
someone's
good-
looking at this
Yes.
and not understanding that,
Yeah.
it could absolutely lead someone to maybe a conclusion that would not necessarily be consistent with how we're actually doing
Yeah,
it.
it's actually a good Q&A for our Q&A, because I don't think everyone knows that. The other thing I will say is, during the time I've been here, we've had 1 or 2 years where things didn't work out in this line, because we did under budget, and we hired people, because when we hire people, we are hiring the highest quality. And sometimes that means that we're paying someone at a higher level than we budgeted. I mean, you think about if we had 6 people that each came in 30,000 more, imagine what that's going to do to this line. And that could easily happen in any given budget year. So it's not, I could never predict the future, but this particular approach of fully funding the line, but then taking out for teacher turnover, taking out for retirees, and then not over budgeting on subs, has really worked out over the years for us when it comes to the bottom line.
No, I appreciate it, and I appreciate the process for me, I just need to, I'm going to look back more that you said that. I mean, I looked back maybe 5 years and keep seeing surplus. I mean, I believe you if you're saying you've been on it much longer and you've been doing it much longer. I'll take another round of looking at it, but just, yeah, I think optically for me, when I look at it, it just is hard to reconcile that. But let me take another pass at it, and I appreciate the background.
No, it's totally fair.
Thank you.
It's a good question. Okay, so I need a motion to tentatively approve page 4. Actually, I'm sorry, any other questions, comments, thoughts on page 4? Okay, can I get a motion to tentatively approve page 4, preliminary professional staffing for 2024, 2025?
No, 2025,
2025, 2026, sorry.
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Oh, nay? Okay, that'll be 7-1. Angela is a nay. Okay, I'm going to get up now. Page 5, teachers, and I'm going to recuse myself at this point.
So for page 5, you will see, first to just let you know that there will be an adjustment. Actually, let me do the overall. So once again, this is driven by increases by teacher contract, an additional 2.9 FTEs, and then 1,200 plus step advancement when applicable, and the 1,800 increase for teachers at top step there.
Kathy, I feel like we just voted on this. I'm confused, because the page we just voted on was just like the FTE. That wasn't technically a line item. The line item is the 113.
We voted on page 4.
4
4 was the increase.
4 was the chart.
2.9
was the 2 point,
increase.
there's a vote
of-
on just the
Yes.
FTEs, you're saying?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
that's fine. It's all, okay, got it.
And so here, because of some, as we talked about, some retirements that we've gotten since the publishing of the book, and a few other, minor adjustments, we're going to see a savings here of $64,411, which will bring the dollar change down the same, kind of same amount, and then overall percent change will be from 3.5 to 3.3%. I will warn you, there's going to be a little later on that we put in for the retirement kind of piece that increases up there, so it's not, it gets adjusted a little bit,
The
but
stipend.
still, the stipend, but it's still,
And
still good news.
And just so, you gave them the total amount for this line, right? It
So
changes?
it'll change now to $37,387,752, which a dollar change of $1,203,473. Once again, with a 3.3% change from the 3.5.
So that line item's going down by $1 million? Did I?
No, it's
No,
going.
64,000.
64,000. Okay.
$64,211.
$411, sorry.
Yeah.
411.
411.
Oh, 411, thank you.
Yeah, 411.
For 3.3.
For 3.3.
Right. Any other questions?
And the 3.3 was for the retirement stuff?
No, that's just the overall decrease. Like currently, the percent change in the budget book is 3.5%.
Yeah.
But with this adjusted of 64,000, now the percent change is only a 3.3% increase.
And the 64,000 is an adjustment for what?
That is some retirements that we got, and so
But
when we
it is
have.
the retirement.
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Late
To your-
late
to your-
retirements.
and this
We
is
already
me-
published the book.
Gotcha.
And then
Okay,
we
so
got
the
more
retirements you saw
retirement.
for Monday, that 64 is taking into account that's a step that you're assuming you're going to hire people at a lower level?
Yes.
Yeah, so
Got it,
typically,
got it.
the retired teachers are at top step, and so that's, X number, we typically budget a number for teachers, and so there's savings.
Got it.
On that.
Okay.
And so that was answering that. Remember I said, hold on, I'll talk about the
Yeah,
retirement
I thought it
piece.
was all one and the same. All my questions apply to this, so I don't need to ask them again.
No
So,
problem.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, can I have a motion to tentatively approve page 5, teacher salaries, in the amount of $37,387,752?
Motion?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
All right. So it's 7-1 opposed, motion carries.
6-1.
It's 6-1.
Oh, that's right, Bill is in here. All right.
Go get Bill. Pardon?
No, no.
No?
No.
I think what we do now, just to not have Bill come in and out of the room is to now go to page 16 through 19.
And then go back. All right.
Benefits piece, okay.
All right. So page 16 is employee health insurance.
So this is where.
So this is an exciting page for us all, right?
Yes. As we talk about the, it's a moving target. When we work, so just to give some history, Farmington has typically employed a consultant to help with insurance and come up with projections and various numbers. This year, we've switched with One Digital, who is helping us and giving us analysis of it. And as we talked about at the Monday Board of Ed meeting, sometimes their projections are based on trends, and some of it are actuals. And so for them to get the actuals and get the numbers and the recommendations for us, sometimes it doesn't happen in line with the timing of the budget book. So when we made our initial projection, we had that number that's in there. Since then, they have put in for a recommendation working with the town for moving forward. This is for the retirees. So this is a group of about 40 individuals. Retirees, they're currently on a self-insured RX program. And so One Digital is recommending us to move that to a fully insured program, RX program. And so by doing that, there's an anticipated savings in the claims there for $1 million in the claims. And so just because, once again, it's an estimate and it's a projection, it's not based on the actuals, kind of it's we're there. We're recommending decreasing this line item by $700,000 to kind of there.
You already took
And we've already and we knew there was going to be savings, and so in the initial budget we already put in approximately $200,000 in there, being very conservative about it. But then talking to One Digital based on their analysis, they felt comfortable that we could add another $700,000 to that. So we're still budgeting, projecting it at $900,000. They've put it a little bit around $1 million. So we still want to, until the actuals come, you want to make sure that you don't want to be caught short on there. So we're reducing this line by $700,000, which will make the request now go to $9,441,835, which would be a dollar change of $11,206, and will be a 0.12% increase.
Increase or decrease?
Well, overall increase is like point. So basically, it's flat.
From 7.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
To 0.12.
0.12.
0.12.
So if I'm looking at page 16, the dollar change that we did have here was $711,000. Now you're saying that's essentially like no dollar change, flat.
Essentially.
It's coming
Like
up
11,000.
11,000.
Total is
$11,208.
$700,000.
Six.
Dollars. So we're taking 700 out of that increase
Okay.
due to this
Switch.
Switch
in the
to-
retiree
right.
retiree benefit from self-insured RX to fully insured.
So you're only taking $11,000 out of it?
No.
No.
Why am I like not following this?
That's the change. That's the
Yeah,
dollar
yeah,
change.
yeah. Okay, okay.
So it's taking 700.
Oh, yeah, okay, yes. Okay, got it. Thank you.
So it's essentially, we're decreasing the budget by 700,000 just in this account alone.
Right.
It should also be noted that the retirees will be saving in their premiums by switching to this program. So there's benefit both to the town, the Board of Education, and the retirees. So this is really a win across the board for
And
everybody.
it's also a win for our current employees because they share in the cost of insurance here. So that also helps all of our employees when they contribute. They have their contribution, and each association has a different percentage, but it can sometimes go up 10%, 15% when it comes to the contribution because it's based on the cost of the plan. When the plan's costs go down, the contributions also reflect that. So it's a win-win-win.
Yeah.
Any other questions? So I need a motion to tentatively approve pages 16 through 18, employee health insurance in the amount of $9,441,835.
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries. And then we move to page 19.
Sorry.
Life, LTD, and other.
Yeah, sorry, I was. So once again, provide life insurance, AD&D, long-term disability to coverage to employees per negotiated contracts with the association increases due to zero-based budgeting. So you'll see it for requests for $290,500, change of $26,250 with a 9.93% change.
Any questions? All right, so I need a motion to tentatively approve page 9, life insurance, LTD, and other in the amount of $290,500.
It's page 19.
Didn't I say page 9?
I think you said 9.
Oh, 19, okay, I'll say it again. To tentatively approve page 19, life insurance, LTD, and other in the amount of $290,500.
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. So I think Bill can come back in?
On page
No,
21.
Page 21, okay. 21, retirement contributions.
So this is a spot where we're going to see a little bit of an increase. That's offset from the retirement. So part of the retirement contributions are there. So the dollar request will now get increased to $199,671. It'll be a dollar change of $30,289, which will now be a percent increase of 17.88%. So overall, difference-wise, we're increasing by $11,500 for the retirement contributions.
And that's because of the individuals who retired and received this retirement benefit.
All right, any questions? All right, I need a motion to tentatively approve page 21, retirement contributions in the amount of $199,671.
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. And we can invite Bill back in the room.
Okay, so we're at page 19.
So we're right at the top.
So we go back to 6.
Back to 6.
We go back to 6.
6 and 7, yep.
Page 6, okay, sorry, thank you. Okay, on to page 6, directors, Dan.
So directors, what you'll see here is an increase that's reflected in the .5 coordinator of technology, .5 residency security coordinator positions, and those .5s are really to make those two positions whole as 1.0, because the .5 of those were put into this year's budget, and so now completing that from the budget process. However, even with that, due through some salary adjustments and some various things, that this line is actually, for the recommended, is going to be decreased by $10,567. And that will take it to now, the new number is $1,348,081 for a dollar change of $184,943 and a percent change of 15.9.
Yep, I think it's in blue. Any questions? Can I get,
Oh, Bill, one question. So you mentioned it's going down, which is fine. Some of those retirees are they in this? Like, does that get reduced at all? Because I know like one of them was like a director of social studies or something that's retiring.
Some teachers.
That's all
That's
teachers?
teachers.
Okay.
Non-cert.
So nothing that would, retirement-wise, would affect this?
Correct.
This line item? Okay, thank you.
okay. Can I get a motion to tentatively approve page 6, directors in the amount of $1,348,081?
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Next, page 7.
So advisors, coaches, once again, you'll see basically following teacher contract in there through appendice for changes there. Here, once again, we have to make adjustment. This is a increase of $2,000 salary adjustment, some salary adjustments and things. And so now the new request is $592,473 for an increase of $8,439, which now brings it to a 1.44% increase.
Questions? Hearing none. All those in favor, I need a motion to tentatively approve page 6 in the amount of advisors, coaches, in the amount of $592,473.
Page 7.
Page 7, I'm sorry.
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Next, page 8.
Page 8, subs. So as we talked about before, this is an area where we budget flat, kind of factoring in a little bit of that teacher salary surplus that usually comes in. So we feel a little comfortable being able to do that. And what will also make this one a little bit more volatile is still trying to see the impact with Connecticut Paid Sick Leave Act. However, having said that, we believe as it currently stands, as it starts next year, it'll run concurrently with most people's sick days, so there's not any additional days or carry forward. So factoring that piece in there, we don't think, but once again, until legislative kind of makes some updates or different things in there, but and regardless of that, we feel comfortable being able to move it along with the flat and be able to take the the deficit where it'll probably come and find it in the other areas.
Questions? Okay. Can I get a motion to tentatively approve page 8, teacher substitutes, in the amount of $768,701?
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Page 9, tutors, Dan?
So tutors, pretty straightforward, same thing. FPSEU increases, including potentially any steps that might be turnover and other various things, but that one's pretty straightforward.
Questions? Can I get a motion to tentatively approve page 9, tutors, in the amount of $702,453?
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Page 10.
So paraprofessionals, contractual increases. There is the 5.01 shifting from operating budget off the IDA grant, and then also an increase of 2.19 FTEs due to student need. So that's where it's bringing the overall percent change up to 13%.
Questions?
Bill?
Beth?
Thanks. So this mentions positions coming off the IDA grant or portions of those. Is that because that grant has been reduced, or was there just a shifting in positions?
So great question. For the most part, what you see is the grants haven't been reduced per se, but most of the time they stay flat. But the paraprofessionals or teachers or whoever we might put on there goes up.
Right.
And so, over time, $100,000 grant, if someone's making, let's just say, $25,000, you can make, you can hire 4 of them.
Yes.
But all of a sudden now it goes to 35,000. It goes, up now.
Right.
You only get 3 point something, and you just that over time kind of puts more stress on the
Right.
operating budget.
Okay.
So the grant is still there?
The grant is still there.
It doesn't increase with
Yeah.
salary increases over time, so there is always that issue of when you have staffing on grants, that stays flat, that usually stays flat, but yet salaries go up, and then the grant can't handle all of those salaries any longer, so we have to shift some of those salaries over to the operating, just periodically. It doesn't happen every single year, but periodically it gets to that tipping point where you have to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
And it stays flat, it has stayed flat for years, or it's just
I
sometimes
mean,
you get?
I'd probably have to,
don't? It's something I'm asking you to.
No, yeah, it's fine.
go
Yeah,
back
I was gonna say, I'd want to probably do a little research and do some digging with Beth to see what that kind of percentage is to give you a factual answer. What I will say though is we do have regular grant meetings as a team, and we're consistently looking at the various funding. And when there are opportunities to be able to take some salaries or positions, and if there's extra money on the grant, then we can kind of shift that over, a little bit. So we're constantly looking to see if there's that opportunity to, squeeze out. I I mean, I've been here a short time, but from looking at the historical thing, with Beth and the team, I'm not sure if I've seen a time where a grant had any money left over, right?
Oh,
They
yeah.
I've seen them, even shift like 9 cents of something over to somebody's like, just to kind of bring it always down. So, that team, I have to give them a tremendous amount of credit, works really hard on making sure that we get, every penny of every grant that we get.
There are times where, not this grant particularly, but other federal grants could go up by $100,000, and we don't know that till July 1. And sometimes they can go down by $100,000, and we don't know that till July 1 because it's based on our demographics at that time. So it's a constantly moving target, and we could never. There are teachers on the IDEA grant, not just paraprofessionals, and so this is just a very fluid process that we go through every year, and we have to keep our eye on every year so that we're budgeting properly and we're not sitting in the middle of a budget year where we don't have enough funds to cover salaries. So this happens periodically where, and I know some of you have experienced, we have to bring things from a grant onto the operating budget because the funding has either been reduced or, in this case, over time, between teacher salaries and paraprofessional salaries, they're going up, and that grant is not keeping up with it, with those salary increases.
And since we're talking about federal grants, and your groups, with your colleagues, Kathy, what is the sense of maybe moving forward into this year and kind of things in flux on the federal level? Are we comfortable counting on our current federal grants, or I know that there's just so many unknowns, but it concerns me going into a new year.
I do think it's something that we're going to continue to watch, continue to keep our town colleagues in the know. If there was something that shifts and we know it, and it's during the budget approval process, even if it's at the town council level, we can communicate that. We do have, I know we've heard from our commissioner and our governor about, really trying to navigate all of this. And when it comes to money for Farmington, yes, it would be very difficult. For other districts, impossible. They rely heavily on federal and state grants to make whole their budget. And so, for us, we're going to keep watching this, but we're receiving 1.2 in federal funds. There's districts that are receiving so much more, and this would be catastrophic for them. So I am just going to keep monitoring it, keep in touch with CAPS, our Commissioner of Education. I'm on the Commissioner's Advisory Committee, and just try to, navigate the next few months and see what happens over time. But I would keep you in the know, and I would keep our town manager in the know if anything shifted and it was dramatic enough that we had to do something different in this budget.
Yeah, I had questions on this line item as well. So, there's a big increase this year, but if you look from just the 2023-2024 expended to this year, it's a 30% increase over 2 years. I mean, that's a huge amount for 2 years. To me, that's just not sustainable if we keep on that trajectory. But in terms of the IDEA grants, and I could be interpreting this wrong, so that's why I want clarification. I'm, again, at this fiscal ending financial sheet that ended in June. That's what I like to go to here. It says there's 2 IDEA grants. There's 619 it's called, and that's a budget of $21,000, and the year-to-date expenses was $21,000. So that one was completely used. Then there's a second line item for 611, which is $923,000 for the last fiscal, and we used the year-to-date expenses was $609,000 for a balance of $313,000 on that IDEA. So when we were just saying there's nothing left over in it, it looks like there was $300,000.
In this year.
But some of
last year.
no, understood. And once again, I understand. Some grants, they allow carryover. So they allow us to carry them over for over 2 years.
Okay.
So if you go to take all the $900,000 and spend it all in this year, now there's $300,000 that you have to put in your operating, if you want to maintain staffing. right? So when we factor in that, 900,000, you figure, I'm using rough numbers, you'd say 450.
Okay.
There are some times where, you look at certain situations, if there's unexpected things that you think about shifting over, one, but then once again, then you have to pay for it later on in the next operating budget. So there's a carryover for some grants. Some don't. Some are 1-year grants, and so you have to expend down all the way by by June 30th. Other ones you're allowed to carry over. So that's why some grants you're going to see some money left over. And what sometimes makes it challenging is you have the rollover of one, but another one and kind of in there. But sometimes it balances because we're keeping that for the operating budget for the next year, so we can maintain staffing.
Okay.
It's kind of think back with ESSER money. When you had the ESSER money, you had to think, okay, we're going to give you all this ESSER money, and then we're going to hire the staffing. But when the ESSER money goes away, you have to make a decision. Either eliminate that staff, which sometimes you don't because they've become critical to the
Yeah.
operation of the school, or you have to move it to, your operational funding.
So this year, what is the IDEA amount that we have for the grant? I guess I'd have to understand this better because I'm not following 100%. Like, I know it rolls over, but I thought you just said it stays stable every year. So if we have excess last year, does that roll over and then we don't get another amount this year?
No, so if we get our number, let's say in this case it's 900,000,
Yeah.
and we get it for 2 years.
It's a 2-year grant, you're saying, this
Yes.
IDEA?
Yes.
Okay, maybe that's not what I'm
Yeah, sorry,
following.
that's what
So-
we meant by rollover. You get to roll over it from 1 year to another. So in essence, another way to say, yes, it's a 2-year grant.
Okay,
So when you get this $900,000, you can use it for, up to 2 years.
okay,
So you have to make a choice of how you want to spend it. And so you could say, we're going to expend this all in 1 year for $900,000. But if you do that, and now for easy numbers, let's say it's 9 pairs at $100,000. Obviously, it's too high, but it's just to
Yeah.
keep the number simple. The 9 pairs. But then the next year, if you want to keep those 9 pairs working, you have to come up with $900,000, presumably in the operating budget, to keep them. So that's going to be a $900,000 increase. What most organizations will do is say, okay, we get 900,000, we're going to take 450 and 450. We're going to get 4.5 paras,
Yep.
and this way we can keep them for both years, and we have this steady, and we don't have this spike, and then have to figure out how to this cliff that we have to try to figure out how to adjust for.
okay, that makes sense, but then I just guess I would try to understand, why did last year we use $600,000 of the $900,000 if our plan was to do like half and half?
So once again, certain times,
The costs were just.
sometimes the cost, but sometimes too, just the need, right? Like we just, sometimes you ideally want to do it 50-50, but sometimes the need increases for a variety of reasons. Then once again, if we don't want to go into the operating budget stuff, then maybe we have to shift from the grant, knowing that, okay, now we're going to have to figure out how to pay for it the following year.
'Cause we're-
Okay, yeah, I mean, I
But
just.
to be honest, for that specific question,
Yeah.
I'd have to do a little research with the team to figure out, the expenditure and, and how that piece of it, how that goes.
Yeah, I guess my concern would just be because of the big increase from 2 years ago. I mean, this is 13%, it's 30% from 2 years ago. I just don't want it to get us into a cycle of, like, how do we keep up with that if we're constantly then moving, overspending the grant? To me, it just seems that, I'm sure we're going to hear next year we want more. So it's like, what's the ceiling of something like that, and how do we try to hedge that?
It's a great question. It's something that's not unique to Farmington. As we, as Derek and Mike, had shared, there's, the state is recognizing this. And so they know that districts like Farmington, really all districts, need, assistance on this. And that's why they formed this commission, this task force on special education, to look to how to, this chart is on, it's not sustainable, right? On this way this goes, and something needs to happen. And so the reality is, it's not even just a unique district thing. It's, we need support from the state. Obviously you'd love it from the federal level and looking at that. So that task force that Derek had mentioned, hopefully will come up with some ways to help level this trajectory off. And the reality is, as Kathy kind of said with the federal grants, we kind of, I don't want to say like just make it work, because I think we do better than that, right? And we do that. But, there are other neighboring districts where, like, they're in very challenging situations,
Right
right now.
Yeah, I with the presentation at the last board meeting, I think we were trying to articulate how challenging this particular area is. I've seen districts, there could be a student who comes in that we're spending $500,000. We didn't put that IEP together, but the child moved to a particular district. And so thinking about that, if you had 10 students move in, we're managing that in a budget year where we have a certain amount of grant funding, a certain amount of operating budget, and less state assistance, lower percentage of the most, costly special education services are going down. And we've managed this volatility in my opinion, in a really expert way over the years, because we have never had to say to the town, oh my goodness, we're, sitting here in a very difficult situation. Both the town and the board do approach this in a way to ensure that we are not being irresponsible in any way. So when we're bringing these to this budget, we are forecasting, because we know of the, and by the way, we are only budgeting for the students in this district today. Next week, this budget could change, but it's a moment in time. I can't express to all of you how volatile this is and how many times a week we have to meet because of, it could be a current student who is in need of more services. It could be a student moving in need of more services. There is many. So when we look at IDEA last year and we spent more, it's because we just had more need and we didn't have any money in the operating budget for that need. So we had to lean on the grant. That was just what happens in a particular year, which then impacts the next year. And because now those costs are just the cost now. So I would say that, with Beth and Dan and the whole business office, this takes up a lot of their time managing and Anne just trying to manage all of it, outplacements. It's not just staffing, it's outplacements as well. And then not being able to rely on the state grant has become more of a problem for us. Like I said, it used to be around 75 or 70, and it always, we could count on it. We can't count on that anymore. And that's why we were saying to our legislators, please increase the funding for the excess cost grant. I would love for it to be fully funded after 4.5 times our per pupil, but I just need that percentage of reimbursement to go up to deal with this volatility. These are, imagine 4.5 times, that's a large amount. And then you're saying it's well beyond that for maybe one student. So it is something that I hope the state, through their hard work and understanding of how other districts right now, we budgeted well last year by doing, the 60%. Just because we needed a little room, we weren't sure because people had lost money last year. And so we said, okay, let's do 60. Well, other districts, the state said, it's going to be 70%. That's your tier. They budgeted at 70, and they're 400, 500, 600,000 in deficit right now in the middle of the year, and then having to manage that. So.
Is that this grant, so that 60%, because I was trying to understand from the last meeting as well,
Yes.
is that baked into this number? So you're
Yes.
assuming there's 60% that, and I think I sympathize with everything you're saying. I think it's so challenging for everyone in this room who's dealing with the constant movement of residents and needs and all of that. It's just, to me, how do you find the balance of that? And I don't know the answer. I don't know if any of us do.
Yes.
So right now, you're assuming that same 60% reimbursement that we did last year.
This year's 55. Because we
This
got
year,
59.
Because of that. Yep, okay.
Now, listen, we could find out legislators put in a lot of money in excess cost. And if we were to find that out before we finalize this with the town council, we would up that, because now we feel more confident that it would be 60 or 65. Or if they said, we're not going to do those tiers anymore, everyone's getting the same reimbursement. I was talking about that with them. Then that's different. And I know for people who have been on the board, sometimes mid-budget approval process, we say, we're going to go to 70 and take out this much and reduce the budget. So
That's one of the questions I was going to ask, is if we could actually, just for Monday night, what would our overall budget look like if the funding for this line was at 70%? You know what I mean? In other words, what would our ask be if we actually knew, if it was 70%, which is what we're supposed to have? So when we're sitting in front of the town council and we're asking them and telling them this is the number based on a 55% expectation, this is why. It's not because we're spending anything irresponsibly, or we're not interested in not complying with their recommended guidelines or whatever. It's because the state of Connecticut is really sticking it to us on this particular line.
We're gonna try.
If you can, if you can.
I think I'm gonna try to have Beth kind of take a look.
Okay.
At that, because that's one of the things we do. We have like that, kind of chart with a sliding scale
Sure.
of like, okay, if we were gonna do it at 70%, if we were gonna put it at 60%, how much that would be able to reduce the operating
so we
budget.
can do, yeah.
And it's,
So-
I'm very much committed to the idea that we approve it at this number, because this is fiscally responsible. Because as Kathy said, I do not want us, and I've seen it in other communities, I can think of a couple off the top of my head, where they're stuck. They are absolutely stuck, and they don't have reserves or any ability to make up that $600,000 deficit mid-year. So I'd rather be super conservative here, and then fingers crossed by the time we get to referendum maybe in May, there's been some guidance from the legislature, and maybe we can tweak the number even more. I prefer we do it like that.
I do think it's important, and this is not to, toot the horn of like, we're just really all school districts. The managing of a budget where so many variables are not constant,
that before.
right? Where so many variables where numbers, where, state says, yeah, listen, they don't really even tell us. They're like, yeah, we think it's going to be 70%, but even that is like, maybe not, okay, yeah, and also the timing of it, right? Even if they were going to tell us it's only going to be 59%. They don't tell us it's 59% until November, December. So at that point, now we've already expended half of our year's budget, and now it's that much harder to make adjustments. If you're going to have to do a freeze, if you're going to have to do some sort of adjustment, you've already lost 4 months on there. So same with, the federal grants and, things a lot of times because of just, and once again, some of it's just a bureaucracy of the delay. They need to see what our demographics are before they can tell us our calculation. But, it'll be, and sometimes it does work in our favor. Sometimes it's like, oh, we get a little more than we thought we were going to get, right? But I think the purpose of trying to get to understand is for a school district across the country to have so many moving variables and not sometimes small variables, right? We can adjust, the $2,000 here, but when all of a sudden now it's like, here's a $400,000, sorry, we told you we were going to give it to you, but now we're not going to give it to you, is really challenging.
Okay, any other questions? All right, so can I get a motion to tentatively approve page 10, aides and instructional support personnel in the amount of $3,764,798?
Motion?
Second?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, motion
Sorry,
carries.
Bill, Beth, do you have the number, did you say?
No.
Yeah,
With Bill at the table, right?
which would then, what would the difference be? How much more would we put in the operating budget?
It's about $360,000 more than the estimate at 55%.
So the 300, and so just once again, as a frame of reference,
That would be a percentage. Like half a
yeah,
percentage
and that'd be, well, yeah,
About half a percentage. point
yeah.
overall.
Because about, for our budget, $800,000 is like 1%, right?
And
10%.
if we didn't get it, it could be a whole of that much
Right.
in the budget.
Right.
So it's a good illustration of the importance of, really being
Yeah.
thoughtful and responsible as we're
It's
budgeting.
a good way to illustrate
Yeah.
to the council
Yeah.
Yes.
what we've all been talking about
Yes.
for the last couple of weeks, so they can really understand why this is so important.
Yeah.
Okay,
Kathy, has the trajectory just gone down, down, down? So it's been just every year you're seeing a decrease, basically?
Yeah.
absolutely.
And sorry, mind you, just to really add to that 70% number that we use is, once again, kind of what we've just accepted.
Right.
They
It's
say
supposed
that
to be 100%.
it's supposed to be 100%. They're supposed to fully fund this.
About, like,
We-
okay, that's full.
They've gotten us just to be excited about 70%,
Right.
but the reality is it's supposed to be fully funded.
Think about
So
what that budget would look like if we
yeah.
were at 100%.
Yeah, we
Right.
should do that number when we talk to
Yeah.
our legislators.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, you probably could. Yeah, it'd be, probably 1.2 million.
we're falling behind.
Sorry. Sorry.
All right, on to page 11, office personnel.
Yeah, so here we have, you'll see the contractual increases steps. Also, the increase of 0.5 for the residency security clerk position, moving that to a full 1.0. But through some little adjustments, though, we do have to add $7,200 through some adjustments there. So now the new request is $2,519,545, which will be a dollar change of $95,273 and percent increase of 3.93%.
Questions?
This includes the residency and security clerk. I know there was just a lot of discussion on that last year, so I'm just wanted to follow up and for my edification. So there was concern that there were a lot of students here that maybe shouldn't have been here. Has he found any, have we found any of those cases? That was the main, I know, talking point of why we wanted him. So I'm just curious, I know we never really circled back on that. Has there been situations where they found that?
So to be fair, and out of respect to things, I would say I wouldn't want to talk like specifics or numbers. I would say I can clearly see significant benefits to this role, both in operationally and financially.
Okay, thank you.
I just have one quick question. So on page 6, so that's the director level going to full-time residency, and then this is the assistant
The clerk.
clerk. Gotcha, okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, can I get a motion to tentatively approve page 11, office personnel, in the amount of $2,519,545?
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, page 12, nurse services.
Nurses, once again, a 3.1 increase and step increase for the nurse contract also results 1.0 increase in the account.
Questions? Can I get a motion to tentatively approve page 12, nurse services, in the amount of $989,266?
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Page 13.
So monitors, you're going to see just the decrease from the .875 of the monitors. Once again, one was inserted, I believe last year to help kind of with traffic flow and safety, but with the new high school building and the layout of it as no longer necessitated that position. So you'll see that taken out of the budget.
Questions? Can I get a motion to tentatively approve page 13, cafeteria, security monitors, drivers, in the amount of $690,763?
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Page 14, custodial services.
So custodial services, once again, is the contractual step increases that were there. Also, the 2.0 FTE result of the shift from the driver positions that were there to the kind of floater custodians. And that also has helped with some cost savings too, because allowing to minimize some overtime, because they can also kind of, once again, float and work in when there's been absences and such. And then also just I don't know, Kathy, how much you want to talk about the 35,000 for the.
Yes. So it's just something that we wanted to put in the narrative because we're not sure. It's always been in the narrative, but now we're no longer going to use the building that is in Unionville. That was our alt school and our robotics location. Right now, our technology team is there until central office is completed and our field house completed. So when our technology team moves over, we will no longer utilize that building. We are always interested in the town if there is the opportunity to give us some space, because we have a huge waiting list for preschool. And so Kathy and I are always talking about that. Is there another location that's a town-owned building that you would be interested in having us utilize? And then we would keep this agreement in place without utilizing any other building. This agreement that we made many years ago when we moved into the alt school, which is in that Unionville location, we had said for recreation, instead of paying for a lease for that location, which is like exchanging money back and forth, we would pay for the overtime for custodians for recreation, because they utilize our buildings and we have a custodian on site, and that's overtime sometimes. Well, definitely on the weekend it's overtime. And so instead of billing them back And instead of us paying a lease, we said, it's pretty much even. We'll pay the overtime, and then we won't pay a lease. But now we're in a situation where we're not going to be utilizing that location. So it's in a bit of a flux, and it doesn't work out for the budget timeline because Kathy Blonsky, our town manager, and Kat, they're looking at all the town-owned facilities given the 1928 building. So there's a lot of shifting going around. So we're keeping this funding in here as we go through the budget process. Could this be reduced if there's no other location to be utilized because we're not leasing anything anymore, or utilizing any town buildings anymore? So it's kind of in flux, but we described it in here because we just want to be clear with everyone that this has been something that has worked out very well for the taxpayers, worked out for us. It was just very much streamlined, but now we're in a period of time that we're not sure if we could get an additional space for preschool potentially. So that's why we're just signaling that in this line.
So, because I read that account goal there, so I think what you just described, I understand, that makes sense. There's a second component to this, which I'm not 100% understanding, where you're shifting from a transportation driver to the custodian. Is that literally you're saying like bus drivers? Like, I don't understand what you're saying there.
So we have vans that we own, and we always had two drivers. They would deal with our mail. Maybe, this is a dynamic organization. We're moving things from one place to the other. We're doing mail every day, internal mail. And there are times where we just need to utilize those, in the past, utilize those vehicles for specialized transportation too. We moved because are with a new transportation company. We moved away from that model, but we still have to do the internal mail. And so we just shifted the 2 driver positions that were our drivers from transportation line, and we moved it over to the custodial line, because that was something that made more sense for us operationally and long-term. And Dan had said it's really saving us in overtime at times, and it will also help us when we move to this building, because we're going to need custodial support over here. And with these 2, we've kind of taken care with that shift. We took care of it, but it was a shift within the budget, which I talked about in my presentation. We really are trying to not add, but shift funding from one source to another to meet the needs we have today and what we believe we'll have, in the coming year.
So the job responsibilities of those individuals is pretty much what it was. You're just shifting the line item, is what you're saying.
Well,
Is that
with
essentially?
custodians, it's a much broader opportunity for them to do many different things than
as opposed to just
a driver. Yes, yes.
But they would still, in that example, in this line, they would still do the internal mail.
Yes,
like from school to
yes.
School or things like that.
The costs stay relatively the same, but the flexibility for the district and
Is
how we
job
utilize these
description,
people,
yeah.
the job description
Yeah.
is more expansive.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it, thank you.
Any other questions? Can I get a motion to tentatively approve page 14 custodial services in the amount of $2,881,938?
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Page 15?
Page 15, once again, just kind of staffing summary. This is kind of, I think, Andrew, you're talking about just that whole summary kind of thing in there. We went over it at the board meeting, so.
And I went over it with the non-cert. So this is non-certified and certified together for the 13.72. So if you added both of those to the 2.9 and the 10.82, that would be the total. Then there's a description of everything, but you're going to see Anne is wonderful. And she went through and described every single transfer of FTE. It was a very complicated year, given us the fact that we're balancing enrollment, but just very detailed and great job,
I would
Anne.
say, Ann, this is probably the clearest iteration I've
Yes.
seen of this part, and really well done.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Questions? We've already kind of covered this stuff. Any motion? So can I get a motion to tentatively approve page 15, staffing by category?
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying
Wait,
aye. Aye.
Could I just have one question? This is the staffing that we saw already. plus the non-certified?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
So it's certified and non-certified all in kind of thing.
okay. So this is the first time we're seeing this technically, right?
Well, definitely the non-certified.
Non-certified.
You
Yes.
did see in the certified, even the transfers. You saw that in the report, how many FTE were moving to NOAA. You saw that.
Yes.
The 10.82 is what you're seeing added to that.
So
you know,
is it
that
all in,
presentation.
is it possible to
Yes.
get this to
Yeah,
like
sure.
equal what we're
You
doing?
could
I'm
go
just
to
having
the
a hard time
non-cert.
following like what sheet we're on.
So you're now not just seeing the 2.9 and all the transfers that Veronica went over, but now you're seeing the non-certified side, which I went over in the presentation and that it's articulated on this page.
It's a consolidated view of
Yes,
certified
yes.
and non-certified.
Yes.
Slides.
So is this related, because the majority of this increase is to the paraprofessionals, which we just talked about. So is this, this is not in addition, this is just a sheet showing me the
It's showing
examples
you
of
in
it?
one place, all in.
Everything that is,
Yes.
okay. But that whole, the IDEA grant that you're referring to,
Yes.
that's all what this is?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
they're related? Okay,
Yeah.
got it, thank you.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. Okay, on to benefits. Page 20.
So FICA Medicare, once again, you'll see just, our standard obligations.
Sorry, hold on a second.
Oh, sorry.
In my outline, there's nothing here on page 19.
Because we did them when you
Did
were.
I?
We did
Oh,
those
I did
when
already?
you,
Yes,
when you were.
yes. So that's why it goes right to page 20.
Perfect, thank you. All right.
We tried to do them all together, so.
Yep, no, it's good.
You didn't have to leave and come back.
Perfect, okay, thank you. Any questions on what we're withholding for FICA and Medicare? Okay, can I get a motion to tentatively approve page 20, FICA Medicare, in the amount of $1,594,042?
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Page 22, Dan.
So unemployment insurance, once again, to our obligation for state of Connecticut unemployment.
Any questions? Can I get a motion to tentatively approve page 22, unemployment insurance, in the amount of $20,000?
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Page 23, workers' compensation.
Same workers' compensation based on our obligations.
Can I get a motion, I'm sorry, any questions? Can I get a motion to tentatively approve page 22, 23, workers' compensation, the amount of $273,011?
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I do have a question about workers' comp, just in general. When our teachers, or if our teachers, or any of our staff, I should say more precisely, any of our staff are injured on the job, it's my understanding that in some districts, the staff member is paid in full. And what I mean by that is that there is a portion that's paid by workers' comp, and then there's a portion that's collectively bargained, or where they get additional pay, so they're actually paid full pay. They get effectively full pay, but it's not, we're not paying the entire, if the teacher's out or the staffer is out. Can you help me understand how Farmington does it with its, and I don't need the answer today, but for Monday.
Sure.
Just kind of articulate a little bit, like how we pay out workers' comp to our staff members. Because there is because I know in Hartford, for example, in Glastonbury, they will pay full pay. The injured worker gets full pay. Some of it is workers' comp and some of it's salary. I just kind of want to know that.
Sure, so, I mean, generally speaking, Ann,
Oh,
okay,
Ann.
Ann, go for it.
And,
I can answer that.
thanks.
Yeah, so our employees are paid in full for our contract, and we pay them in full. If they're out for more than 3 days.
3 days, right.
KERMA will reimburse us. We send out a wage statement to KERMA of their salary. They reimburse us at whatever their formula.
Whatever that employee's comp rate is.
Correct.
Right.
So then I will get a check from KERMA.
Okay.
And I will reduce, then the employee gets the check and a reduced salary. They're still whole, but then they get the check from KERMA. So it reimburses the district because we've paid them in advance.
Right.
So then when the check comes in, the net of the two of them together are still making the employee whole, but now we've gotten reimbursed from KERMA.
That's what I thought. So this is just paying the premium for that coverage, basically, with KERMA.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
And you can see a savings.
Yeah, oh, yeah,
Which
absolutely.
is
Bonus.
Good
This is
sign.
more of a
Trends.
philosophical, I mean, I'm sure, I don't think we have very many people that need that, I was just curious. Okay, on to page 24, other employee benefits.
Provide a pair of safety shoes for each custodian for the
Safety shoe,
FDSU contract.
Yeah,
Gotta
so,
have safety
so
shoes.
easy.
I love this one every
I know,
time.
I know.
Every year.
All my steel toe shoes.
Any questions? No. I get a motion to tentatively approve page 24, other employee benefits in the amount of $2,200.
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. 2 down, 4 to go. Services, page 25, Dan.
So, yeah, overall services, do you want summary of services, or do we need to,
Go right into the lines.
let's go right into the lines, love it.
He's already provided the
Yeah,
summaries.
beautiful. So we have summer school, once again, just providing the opportunities, high school, IR, elementary schools, special services, and so on. Funding includes personnel and supply costs. That's being funded at flat.
Okay. So no increase in this line.
No increase in this line.
Any questions? Okay, can I get a motion to approve summer teachers on page 25 in the amount of $468,100?
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Page 26, public relations.
Public relations, once again, funding for community newsletter, other, public relation type activities. Increases due to increased cost of newsletter.
This is the the newsletters that we send out,
Winter, and
Winter,
yes, yeah, the
2
winter and summer.
winter and summer updates, right?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions? Can I get a motion to tentatively approve page 26, public relations in the amount of $50,400?
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, page 27, student services.
K-12 orientation programs, assemblies, transitions for schools, commencement, other student services.
So when we have graduation and we have people working, like custodians are working, are they paid out of this line, or are they paid out of their normal salary?
I think that comes out of salaries.
Okay, it's part of their job.
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, can I get a motion to tentatively approve page 27, student services in the amount of $62,712?
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Page 28, other student services.
This is clubs, activities at both the middle school and high school.
Questions?
Is this, just real quick,
Yeah.
this isn't related to salaries of people that support the clubs, or this is just
Like stipends?
like stipend stuff? That's separate.
Yeah, so this, I believe, is when some of the stipends that have been added on like the tiered levels, part of the new FEA contract,
Appendix C.
right? So there's the clubs that go to, step, that's a 1 or 2 or 3 or 4.
Right.
And this doesn't really include the, your, I would say, more traditional advisor clubs, yearbook, National Honor Society. This is a lot of the other clubs and opportunities that have come there, and then each year they negotiate, and it might be a $200 stipend or $400 stipend, depending on how often that they meet.
Yep, I remember the,
Yeah, Kim did it she presented last
yeah.
Yes.
no, I just wanted to confirm that was the same.
Yeah.
Cool.
Any questions? Any other questions? Okay, can I get a motion to tentatively approve page 28, other student services in the amount, in the amount of $90,159?
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Professional education services, page 29 to 31, Dan.
So you'll see consultation, OT, student evaluations, CCSN, various things in there. What should be noted here, you're going to see that decreases on one of the staffing pieces where we added an occupational therapist. That salary, once again, as we talk about shifting, is coming from this money. We believe that there's enough services that we're contracting out that we can take care of in-house, and not only will it be, we believe at worst, cost neutral. We think there might even be a little bit of savings, but also provide better service, because having the person in-house provides more flexibility in scheduling, more opportunities. Also knowing that, first our students will have, in many cases, we'll have the one OT, so it allows for building the relationship, so it's not just a different OT every time, and so the students there. So we think there's multiple benefits, both financially and from a student standpoint.
I always like to see a parentheses or bracket on a line.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. There's also the curriculum area, so I don't know, Veronica can say a few things, but these are the curriculum projects that were discussed with our curriculum committee. that we're planning for the coming year. So you see that on page 30 and 31, which are part of this particular account.
Yep. And so the question always comes up, what is this actually paying for? And it's, again, the stipends for the teachers to work on these projects. They're generally projects that are started in the summer, and then continue on all year. So the revisions are being done throughout the year, so teachers are paid for the extra time that this is taking above and beyond sort of regular teaching time. This is developed with department leaders and other curriculum personnel in our school districts. This budget is. And like other areas, it's a little bit still, we put this in very early, and some of this still sort of develops over the next couple of months, but you'll see this report several times in terms of what projects are actually going to move forward as we go. But some of the big projects I can already tell you about that are, that we know need to be done our reading curriculum to align with the right to read legislation at the elementary schools. We continue to improve that. You've seen pretty recently the science curriculum review that we've been engaging in. So many of those now need to be updated, revised, and new courses that are being added in those pathways. In Spanish, we really are interested in getting to a point where more and more of our students are passing the seal of biliteracy at the high school level. And so along the way, we want to put in an external assessment, so aligning our curriculum so that our students perform better on that external assessment and even the lower grades to get them used to the skills that they need in order to do well on that assessment. Of course, every year there are projects related to SEL programming in all of our schools, so that comes out of that budget. There is a need to align some more of our high school curriculum to NEASC requirements. I think during, there's just, I think there were some, we did an assessment, and there were some places that still needed to be, more aligned to really our hopes and dreams and the vision of the global citizen. And so, sort of a bump up in some of the curriculum at the high school level, so ongoing revisions that happen. And again, this is a process that starts in the summer in collaboration with all curriculum leaders and continues throughout the following year. So this pays for all of the stipends for all of the teachers that are doing that innovative and, sort of work to keep everything that we do fresh and engaging. And I think it's particularly important now in the age of artificial intelligence too, for us to continue to work on the types of curricular tasks that we're giving to students, so that they really fit in with what we're saying about, the civic-minded contributors, and all the tasks look like the reason I do them is because I contribute in some way to my local or wider community. And so really aligning a lot of our curriculum to that goal.
Thanks, Veronica. Any questions? I get a motion to tentatively approve pages 29 through 31, professional education services in the amount of $676,500.
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Page 32, supporting educational services.
Family outreach programs, a good start. You are going to see in Project Paida some increases in there due to the NEASC visit approaching. So that always has some additional expenses associated with it, hotels and food and such.
Any questions? I get a motion to tentatively approve page 32, supporting educational services in the amount of $35,168.
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Page 33, professional employee training and development.
So once again, providing in-service training, faculty, staff, to meet our goals and vision of the citizen, also team program.
Any questions? Can I get a motion to tentatively approve page 33, professional employee training and development in the amount of $187,100?
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Page 34.
As you can see, just the vast array of professional services needed by the district.
Questions? Angela?
So if we look back, this is a huge increase, 33%. But if we look back there was a dip last year. It was only 322,000, and now this year, we're asking for 431, which is more in line with what we had 2 years ago. What was the dip for last year? Why was there $100,000 less needed than 2 years ago, but now we're back up?
I can, yeah.
Go ahead.
ahead.
I was gonna have to do some research. to get
Yeah,
that
I
answer.
can't think off the top of my head. It was a difficult year last year. We were finding efficiencies in any line possible. That could have been, this building back of recurring costs is an issue. We also are going to do FEA negotiations, so we had to add some attorney costs to this line, and every time we are doing that, we always have to add, and then there's a savings in the next year because we don't need that. I think it's also just trending at a higher level. It does say physical therapy services. There could be an opportunity there as we go through. We're still planning how we're going to approach
Also,
that.
not having the history, I would guess that they planned, approved less for this year, because I don't believe, there weren't any negotiations.
There weren't any.
Right? So one of the gifts that Scott left me was not leaving me any negotiations for this year. And so probably in the budget, they probably planned, probably took some money out of that because knowing that there weren't any negotiations. So for here, coming up in the next school year, we'll have the FEA negotiations, which obviously will be, probably a pretty large, kind of negotiation because of the total cost on there. And so that's part of the increase there.
Okay.
Right, so FPSEU was in the 23-24.
23-24, yes.
Right, okay.
Yes.
That makes a lot of sense.
Also, maybe the nurses, which might have been.
Could you have a little bit more clarity as to what
I wrote that down as a question.
Okay.
Well, at the end of the meeting, today, I'm gonna write down questions that we have
Yeah.
for them to kind of come back to on Monday.
Right.
So that's the first one I've got.
And if, Beth, you can look into that in the meantime, and we could get an answer by the end, we could do that too, so.
I will just say, on the June 30th financials, there is revenue applied to that line at the end of last year, which also helps drive down the overall cost.
Okay, so that's part of it, is that we put some reimbursement on there, some revenue
Grant
on
money?
there.
Grant money?
Right.
And we had a very difficult budget last year, and we had to be creative in how we approached it when it came to making reductions, not only building the budget, but then reductions. If you remember, we started at a 6% and went to a 4.75% increase. So there are times where we'll take a revenue source and place it on that account and lower the account by that revenue. This year, those revenues are being potentially applied to outplacements more so than this line. So that's another reason we just aren't, I don't think we're applying any revenue to this line, right, Beth?
No, not.
No, this year, where last year we did, because of the outplacement increases, which you're going to see. So it's just.
We'll come back to it on Monday.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
I would note, though, that even though it's more, substantially more, it's still less than what we spent 2 years ago.
And would we foresee a reduction maybe in the future as we've gotten through some of the policy updates? And, because that obviously drives some of the costs from a legal
Yeah.
fee perspective.
Yes. Absolutely.
Can I get a motion to tentatively approve page 34, other professional services in the amount of $431,750?
Motion?
Second?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Next, page 35, data processing services.
Yeah, pretty much just, operational systems for day-to-day operations.
Questions? Can I get a motion to tentatively approve page 35, data processing services in the amount of $457,819?
Motion?
Second?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Page 36, water dam.
Self-explanatory?
Any questions?
Less water? Save money?
We're big rain collectors. I get a motion to tentatively approve page 36, water, in the amount of $75,287.
Motion?
Second?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Page 37, sewer.
Sewer charge, self-explanatory, but just, I think this is noted once again when we talk about, savings and cost containments. This is something where we work with the town of Farmington to be able to keep it as financially responsible as possible.
Any questions? Can I get a motion to tentatively approve page 37, sewer charge, in the amount of $22,511?
Motion?
Second?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Page 38, disposal services.
Disposal services, same thing, partnership with the Public Works Department for a joint bid on services for 25-26.
Questions? Can I get a motion to tentatively approve page 38, disposal services in the amount of $99,019?
Motion?
Second?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Page 39, equipment repair.
Pretty self-explanatory, repairs, equipment within the facilities. You'll see some increase from inflationary costs of goods and services.
Got it. Questions? Can I get a motion to tentatively approve page 39, equipment repair in the amount of $118,587?
Motion?
Second?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Page 40, building repair in-house.
Once again, operational things, keep everything up and running.
Questions? Angela?
This one mentions the FHS maintenance phasing back to the budget. Can you just elaborate, like, I don't know, I thought like new high school, all this money, no more fees for that for a little bit. So now what are we moving back to the budget from FHS?
So, Sam could explain it, but if you remember, we had a lot of money taken out of last year's budget because of the new building, and so we're not going to build it all back in 1 year, but we have to build it back over time.
The warranty. It's
And
Warranty's
what's
only
the
a year, right?
warranty
Post-warranty
period?
stuff, right?
Yeah.
Is the warranty period just a year?
Yeah, most everything in the building is a 1-year warranty period. And on top of that, things like boiler contracts to maintain our boilers, rooftop equipment, elevators, for instance. We have annual contracts where we inspect and maintain all that equipment. For the first year of the high school, we didn't have that in our operating budget. We reduced it last year.
Yeah.
So with that said, there's less maintenance dollars in this budget than there will be as we go forward because we still have newer equipment. But we do have contractual services that will come in to maintain. But as equipment and fixtures get older, we'll have to build back in additional dollars as things start to break down or need replacement, those sort of things.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Can I get a motion to tentatively approve page 40, building repair in-house in the amount of $419,650?
Motion?
Second?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Page 41, building repair contractors.
Pretty much same thing, just through contracted repairs directed by Director of Facilities.
This is a almost 35% increase, and that's kind of dovetails on what Sam was just saying.
Yes, correct.
One's in-house.
Any other questions? Can I get a motion to tentatively approve building repair contractors in the amount of $199,700?
Motion?
Second?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Page 42 to 50, building repair projects in the amount of $270,250.
So this one, you're going to see the percent change is going to have kind of like that sticker shock for you, and we appreciate that. This is really just, one, obviously maintaining our facilities plan and not wanting to get behind, but also some of this is putting together some money that was cut from the 24-25 budget and trying to put that back in. You want to keep yourself in a position where sometimes obviously you need to make cuts, but you don't want to fall too far behind, right? And then you also have other challenges. For example, last year the East Farm ceiling project was eliminated. So then you're like, okay, let's put it back this year. Challenge this year is because of the Westwoods roof project. East Farm is going to be needed for some of the summer school programming, and so we won't be able to do it then. So now there's some of the other so you're always trying to kind of keep it moving, because once again, if you kind of create too much of this bottleneck, eventually there's going to be that year where it's going to be the 91, even though it's it's a percent one, the total actual dollar change will actually give you a sticker shock.
And could I just add, just so everyone will remember this in the future, when we did the K-8 reviews, we always tried to keep a target of $300,000 in this account to address those projects over time, and we have underfunded this, and it's been a place that we went when we have a difficult budget. But I want everyone to think of that as like a target for this account is $300,000 to actually get to everything we saw in those K-8 reports. We've just had some really difficult times when it comes to the operating budget, and we haven't been able to achieve that. But that can really impact us over time, because then you're going to start getting emergency projects. That K-8 report was to be proactive, and so just leave that with everyone.
I was going to say, this is when the bill comes due. I mean, you can see what in 23, 24, we slashed the budget. We do this, this is one of the first accounts we go to when the budget comes back to us from the council, because it's the one that it has probably one of the least impacts on programs, but it does have an impact on
Yes, it
programming. It
does.
does have an indirect impact on
Yes.
programming. And so I echo the superintendent's sentiment that this is an account I would not be keen on going to were we in a position where we had to make significant cuts. So I just want to kind of share that with you, my thought process on that. Any questions? Angela?
So this is a balance. I agree, Kathy. I mean, obviously, we want our schools to look great. Like, I'm the most vested. I have the youngest kids. Totally agree. For what we cut last year, though, we still underspent on that, like almost $100,000. So did we just not even, I know we cut projects, but then did we not even do all the projects we said we were going to do last year? Like, why was there, it says here for line 433, it was 162, and then we only spent 60, so there was 96,000 left over. So that was my only question, wondering what happened there. Because I think it's a balance of trying to figure out what to do, and then some of these prices, I feel like this is so silly, but I have cut down so many trees in my life. I cut down 20 trees at my property. I'm on the HOA that cuts down trees around our neighborhood. I actually really know tree pricing. I am astounded that it will cost $6,000 to take down one tree. I mean, I'm telling you, I can talk to you about trees for weeks, sadly but true. So just some of these things, I'm just wondering, and then when I see it. So I don't know if there was any further information on where that money went last year, but I just saw that there was an overage, a surplus last year.
I know we did all projects that we had listed on the major projects for that year. I will have to look back and see, potentially, I will have to look back on that. So I will get back to you on that. For the tree, as we discussed so this line is that major projects, presentation that we had.
Yep.
That's an estimate that I'm giving because somebody's going to have to go in through the building.
Yes.
Yeah, I know it's a
They
weird
have
tree.
crane
Yeah.
to come over the top, and they're working directly against the building, so it is going to be more expensive than a typical tree if it was just in a field.
Sure.
And cut it down and leave it.
Yep.
Also, it's within the courtyard, so you want to make sure you stump that as
Yep.
well, and that we're planting something in the area that we
Yep.
have the tree. It could be a little higher. I haven't, gone out.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to go crazy on the tree thing. I was just looking at examples, but yes.
Yeah, if we go back, I know we did all the projects that we had on the major project list for that year, but I have to look exactly.
Okay.
That's
Yeah,
fine.
that would just be my only
Honey,
question.
That's a good question.
It could have, but I don't know. Could have been an example of we were in a difficult budget and we used some revenues, we used some other funding for some of those projects because we were overexpended in a lot of accounts, but we wanted to achieve it. I don't know if that happened, but it's kind of our overall conversation today of the volatility of creating a budget in a moment in time and then living through the budget in the next year. And it could, sometimes we will look at so we're not going to be able to do these 5 projects. Where could we find funding to do some of them? So when Sam's saying we did all of them, that's where I'm thinking something happened like that, but we can look into it.
Okay, thank you.
Bill, real quick.
Yes.
So this is accounting for the 2 schools, Noah Wallace and Westwoods, the increase with the shift of this redistrict? So any work that has to be done is included in that?
So not all of that expense. Excel will be paying for a lot of the modifications that we have to make at Westwood as well. What it is including is painting and carpet work at Noah Wallace for the rooms we're leaving. And then at Westwood's also more related to the roof project that we'll be doing. With an empty building, we're looking at doing teaching walls. We don't usually have a chance to get into classrooms and patch and paint. So we're looking to patch and paint on teaching walls at Westwood while the roof project is going on.
Yeah.
So
Fair.
that's those 2 larger amounts.
Yeah, just the 2 schools were higher than, so, thank you.
Good questions, everyone. Can I get a motion to tentatively approve pages 42 through 50, building repair projects, in the amount of $270,250?
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying
Aye.
aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. Can I get page 51, lease of building?
So lease of storage containers, Board of Ed, you'll see a reduction there. I think we were able to eliminate one of the storage containers.
Questions? I get a motion to tentatively approve page 51, lease of building in the amount of $1,500.
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Page 52, lease of equipment.
This is just here, copier services. We lease out the copy machines. We go through a state of Connecticut contract.
Any questions? I get a motion to tentatively approve page 52, lease of equipment in the amount of $173,289.
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, page 53, the bus contract, transportation services.
So once again, transportation services, all the things that come with it, late buses and other associated runs, contractual increase of 5%. Grant revenues have been applied here, and shift of driver positions, and from the custodian one that we talked about, the drivers.
So it's 5% based on the contract increase plus, various other variables, for lack of a better way to describe it, for fuel costs, potential fuel costs and things like that.
Yeah. So once again, but this number we've brought it down because we've applied like potential the grant revenues to it.
Okay. Questions?
Yeah, I mean, my only question was kind of what Bill just said. So I know we have a 5% increase every year. Like, what was the additional, I thought you said gas was down, so I didn't
That's
know.
a different line. I misspoke. It's on a
Yeah.
different line.
Oh, okay.
That's a different line.
That's a different.
Like, what would be the increase? I mean, special services, I'm assuming for like individuals that need specialty transportation, no pun intended. But like is there anything else but that's driving
just-
it?
it's really-
just that.
It's really that.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Any other questions? Need a motion to tentatively approve page 53, transportation services in the amount of $5,035,965.
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Page 54, field trips.
Just field trips, enrichment for students. Some of it's curriculum-based.
Okay. Can I get a motion? Any questions?
I actually have a question on this. I'm going to approve it. I feel like there's confusion around field trips in general, just with like amongst the residents. Do we fund a certain number of field trips per year, per grade, per classroom? Like, so we cover the bus trend. What do we cover in the Board of Ed budget for field trips? Because I feel like when you get permission slips home, it's like you're paying this and it's for the bus, it's for this, but it's like, well, here's the bus. So what does this cover exactly for field trips?
So this could be, so field trip. I'm trying to kind of categorize. There's not an absolute on all of them, right? There's times where if schools are doing field trips that are enrichment, right, type things, then those are things where typically the families would be asked to pay for the kind of cost of bus. There might be other things that are more not enrichment, more curricular based, probably predominantly at the high school, that are kind of part of the the course curriculum and things. And so those are things where it might be that the school would pay for that because it's necessary for them as part of their course, right? So that's kind of a general kind of overview.
So what went up, like what's the difference of what we were paying last year to like 122% increase?
So-
Again, I'm a proponent of field trips. I'm not like voting, I'm gonna vote yes to this. I just want clarification for myself because it's very confusing as a parent when the PTO is subsidizing the field trip, you're paying for the field trip, now there's a line item on the budget for the field trip. Like, I just feel like there needs to be just general clarification in
This
my opinion.
particular is, you could see it in the narrative. FHS had some field trips and FHS supplies, which it should not have been there. So we're correcting that and putting it in the correct account.
Through doing the budget request process and meeting, with the high school and various things, we were talking about certain areas, and they were like, "Oh, we take it from here," and Beth and I were kind of like, "Why are you taking it?" So some of this just is accounting practices of shifting some areas there, which is why you see kind of that also sticker shock on there. So it's really the kind of that money was there, but we're like, no, it needs to be put into this account.
Okay, yeah, I'm a proponent of field trips. I think the kids should be going on more field trips. This could be an offline conversation, honestly. Yeah, thank you.
And on coach buses.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't mention that, but yes, of
I am
course.
a big believer in the need for the coach bus. Okay, all those in favor, I'm sorry, can I get a motion to tentatively approve page 54 field trips in the amount of $47,497?
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Just let everybody know, my intent was to take a break when we finish this. We finish this.
Marathon.
So we're almost there. Page 55, telephone.
Self-explanatory?
Questions?
That's expensive telephone.
Can I get a motion to approve, tentatively approve page 55 telephone services in the amount of $107,097?
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Page 56.
Posted self-explanatory. At some point, if someone doesn't like that, I say self-explanatory for time, but if someone would want me to expand on that, feel free. But self-explanatory.
You know what, if you were making the stamps, we'd have. Any questions?
I actually have a question. I mean, postage goes up, has been going up. It goes up twice a year now, I think. So does it mean that we're doing less kind of snail mail thing, and so that kind of accounts
Absolutely. You
for
try to find
zero?
opportunities whenever times are like, okay, do we need to mail this? Can we just, can we email? Can we use Parent Square? Can we, find other ways to find those efficiencies? But there are still some things where, we really feel are important documents
Right.
that we want to make sure they get into people's hands.
And there's legal things, I think.
And then legal things,
504,
504s, PPTs, 100%.
Any other
Keep it
questions?
at zero.
Yeah.
We should just buy forever stamps, is what you're saying.
Great idea.
I don't think there's anyone licking stamps.
$100,000 worth of forever stamps.
Good investment
Never
right
happened.
there.
If only.
Where are those forever stamps that we bought 5 years ago?
Can I get a motion to approve page 56 postage in the amount of $50,392?
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Data line.
Self-explanatory?
Questions? Can I get a motion to tentatively approve page 57 data line in the amount of $213,294?
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Next, page 58, printing in the amount of $31,413.
Self-explanatory?
Okay, any questions? I need a motion to tentatively approve printing in the amount of $31,413.
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Next, page 59, public tuition.
Somewhat self-explanatory, but, obviously, special services, the challenges that we face on this on a regular basis that we've discussed, whether at board meetings or even today.
So this is an area where we're talking about the special ed cost challenges and the variability of it, right? I mean, we can have a year when there's very few IEP, needs, and it's a good year, so to speak. And then there could be years like we've talked about where it can be, not so good, and our students need help. And so, what's the math, or how do you get to that number of 219,957? Like, what makes you think like that's the number as opposed? Because you're just picking a number, right? You're just based on what?
No, we're using
Based
the
on
cost
currency.
of
Yeah.
the students today. That would, the public tuition would be in this account. And then so it's all in, this budget would be much higher if we did not have the revenue that we're taking out of it. So then excess cost, Beth works with Wendy and says, what accounts are we applying the excess cost? This is one of them.
Okay.
This would be much higher.
Got it.
But I will emphasize that it is a moment in time with current students moving to next year, who will be with us, who require private or public tuition. And then the next line is private tuition, which you see is a much larger increase, but both have excess cost revenue applied to it to reduce it.
So it could be even more if you were not applying revenue.
This is underfunded by, yes, yeah.
Right.
So the excess cost, that's a federal, I'm looking at the financial, that's like the line item that you're saying is applied to here. So the IDEA grant is not this.
It's
That's
separate.
complete, you do that separate.
And
This
we
is
have
only.
a budget for that, yeah.
Okay, so is the excess cost a similar situation as the IDEA grant where we would ideally want 100% reimbursement?
Yes.
So excess cost is.
That is the one,
state
not the
grant
IDEA.
Not the
Yes.
IDEA.
That they're,
Yes.
right.
But just to be clear, excess cost grant is funded through the state, not federal.
Excess fund grant is fed, so, under on these financials, it's under federal, just so you know. I don't know if that matters, but, so, I don't know.
We'll take a look.
Yeah. This is the one from the ending one in June. I don't have the one, like, the latest with me. I thought I printed it, but I don't think I.
Just,
Line is federal, and above the
Oh,
line is
okay.
state. That's the totals, yeah.
Above the line.
So
Gotcha,
within
you're
state
right.
would be that multicultural arts, open choice,
Yes.
access cost.
Okay, I was reading it below the line was the subtotal. Okay, yep.
one thing I want to kind of call everybody's attention to, it's in the book. Page R1 is a really great summary of all of the revenue that we're projecting as contributing to paying for our budget. You know, there's a line item for state funding derived from the grants. ECS is included in that. I mean, this is a pretty good, like, it's a complete summary. But just, I point to that to give you a sense of comparing that with last year's financials, to give you a sense.
I will say that excess cost we get, this is always confusing, excess cost in ECS. ECS, the town receives and keeps. It doesn't get applied, you know, we're not receiving it. The town receives it. We're not applying it to our budget, but, you know, the town, I guess, in essence, right, by giving us this, could apply it, but at that, you know, at the town side. Excess cost comes to us.
That's the one that we're talking about.
And that's special education. ECS is a general cost-sharing grant that the state is cost-sharing based on ability to pay. That goes to the town, and then excess cost comes to us. Yeah.
Excess cost is the one that right now, so if we were to go to the task force that was identified through Senator Slapp, that is the task force is specifically looking at that at the state level because of the increase of special educational
Yes.
identification. And so, and then this out of placement, in placement transition cost. I mean, there is a lot. And so there's some significant proposal right now across the state
Yes.
in looking at all districts and how there could be some funding that's fair and equitable across all districts versus percentage. There's a lot, just all that to say that this here is not, this is not an easy task for any district because it is of the volatility that you're saying. But the state and even nationally, this is a lot of attention right now on excess costs, just a lot of attention.
And reiterating that challenge that we won't know, though, the answer to that until probably maybe June, right? And so then, once we get that, we obviously could,
Sure.
the adjustments and different
Yeah.
things that are in there.
Yeah, I mean, the difficulty is the budget is passed. You
Yeah,
know,
the
that's
budget- yeah,
always
sure,
a
sure.
challenge. And then it remains that way, and we kind of see how special education plays out next year. But yes.
So it's at the end of the year you get the percentage, like, that seems almost like an easy, why don't they just do it almost on like a monthly basis so that you can better budget based on what the percentage is? I mean, that seems like an easy.
We've asked this question.
That would be nice.
Yeah, yeah, you know, I mean, that just seems like common sense, but, so you have to wait till the end, their fiscal, I'm assuming, ends June as well, and then that's when they well, then you wait for it, and then it
Well,
comes
we
in the fall.
actually wait.
No, just so we're clear, they sometimes will say, every year, they tell us it's going to be fully funded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? And then, but then in like November, December, they go, yeah, we're not going to be able to pay that bill, so we're going to give you, and it was, and once again, we accepted 70%. And we were like, oh my God, this is great, 70%, even though we were like not getting 30%. And then it just kept getting lower and lower and lower, and then this year it's 59%.
So bad, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There
so
was a time where it was much more predictable and pretty, and now it's not at all, and it fluctuates in significant ways.
Yeah.
I'm curious as to what our budget would look like at 100, like we said before, 100% and at 70%. What would our budget
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I think it'd probably be approximately an additional 1.2 million, which would be well, a
substantial.
point. The 5.6 would probably be down to low fours, just from that part of it.
For sure.
Right.
We should have the legislators come next year after this session, because I feel like this sparks so much conversation that, like, I feel like I would have been more peppered for them, and like, I could have been more in my game for that meeting then with like asking them these types of questions. But that's interesting. I didn't know that, so.
I will, sorry, I just have to say, just because I just have to say, yes, that would be good, but right now is when public hearings are starting to get scheduled at the state level. I'm just an advate for state level, in
So
the
this is
sense
the
of
time frame
testifying
that when they're
for
doing
those,
it.
at those public hearings where this, especially as the special task force has released recommendations, which were all shared to us. They are looking specifically at this. This is the time at that state level that we need to, everybody.
It's February, you're saying, is like the
Well,
time.
February, March, April, the legislative
Yeah.
session, February, March, April, May, the public hearings are all happening, and this is the time to, every resident and constituent should be testifying and asking
Yeah.
those questions that you're asking.
Yeah,
And making
interesting.
those points for
Yeah.
benefit, for advocating for your district.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
Good discussion. Can I get a-
Sorry. I have a question about revenue. I know that sometimes we have out-of-district students come to our programs, and they pay tuition to the district. Is that here?
So we have not had that opportunity and lately, just because of the need here.
Yep.
If we had low enrollment in a program, that's always, a possibility. I would say where that is prominent is in our Farmington Valley Transition Academy, our 18 to 22-year-old program. I always celebrate that program in that we own it with Simsbury. It serves our students well at that level, but we also take in many, many tuition students in that program. That offsets the cost of that program. It's really an exemplar for the state. It's something that we've shared with legislators in the past when they want to look at regional partnerships. And so, and we've had that for decades. So it's just a point of pride, I feel, in our district to have that program. And, the times that I visit it, you leave walking on air because of what the students are being provided in an 18 to 22-year-old age group, preparing them for their life after the public school experience that they've had. And so that is a great example of tuitioning in students that actually is offsetting our cost to the program.
And sorry, to piggyback on that a little bit, what you'll see on that special education task force is they're constantly making the recommendation that more districts should be finding these shared resources that like we're doing with Simsbury. So to highlight Kathy's point, Farmington Valley Diagnostic Center, Farmington Valley Transition Academy, these are exemplars that the state is
Yeah.
saying more districts need to be doing this, need to be, collaborating with other districts to share these costs to bring the overall costs down. So the fact that I think Farmington's already doing this and finding opportunities to do it is I think, a credit to Farmington and how do we utilize that? The other piece, I think it's important to also note with public school and private tuition that might have been talked in previous years. The law has recently changed, probably within the past 5 years, where now we are responsible for students up to 22 years of age, right? And so now there's an additional year for many of our students that once again, an unfunded mandate where they put that on, but they didn't provide any funding for that.
Yeah.
So that's an additional expense that we've taken on that you'll see through, the various tuitions and different.
That
pieces.
was a state expense in some cases for students. It was at 21, after 21, there were state expenses, but the state put it on school
Yeah.
districts.
Like a lot of times
till
you would
22.
go
And-
through
and-
DDS, Department of
right,
Developmental
right.
Services, right? As soon after 21 and they weren't, they kind of graduated out of the school system, would kind of there, but
State
then
programs,
and various state programs, but then the state changed the law to have us responsible for students from all the way to age 22.
And not all students at the Transition Academy would take advantage of those services.
Sure.
But it was an example of another mandate that shifted costs to the school district and
Without commensurate dollars.
no money came, to the school districts as a result of that mandate. So.
Okay, can I get a motion to tentatively approve page 59, public tuition, the amount of $219,957.
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Next page, 60, private tuition, kind of part of the same.
I was about to say, similar, we've applied potential grant revenues to it, but really all on the same theme, nothing specific there.
Questions? Can I get a motion to tentatively approve page 60, private tuition, the amount of $1,681,684.
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying
Aye.
aye. Opposed, motion carries. Page 61, tuition to educational service agencies.
Pretty much same, various meeting the needs of our special services. This is where you'll see Farmington Valley Diagnostic Center getting budgeted for. And Magnet, and also, but offset by projected grant revenues.
Questions?
I had just a quick question. Are more students going to magnet schools and receiving special ed services, or is the cost of the special ed that they receive in the magnet schools increasing?
it's more that, it's the cost of special services in the magnet school that has increased both the amount that, for fees. So if it's, this child needs this many hours of time with a special education teacher, their fee structure
I see.
has,
Okay.
has
It's their fee
increased
structure.
over time. And, just, I think we're saying generally, whether a student's in a magnet school or wherever, costs are, and needs, its needs are increasing for students, and then in turn costs. But it also is the fee structure.
Okay, thank you.
Motion to approve, can I get a motion to tentatively approve page 61 tuition to the educational service agencies in the amount of $330,584.
Motion?
Second?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Page 62, tuition.
This is part of our mandated educational services, adult community Farmington, GED, CDP, NEDP, citizen preparation, multilingual learners, workforce development.
Questions? Can I motion to tentatively approve page 62 tuition other in the amount of $48,000.
Motion?
Second?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Page 63, travel.
This is to cover stipends for administrators, teachers, with all associations, also for any conferences, professional development, so on.
No, this line stays pretty stagnant.
Yeah.
Can I get any questions? Motion to tentatively approve page 63, travel in the amount of $96,911.
Motion?
Second?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Next, natural gas.
Self-explanatory?
Questions? Can I get a motion to tentatively approve page 64, natural gas, in the amount of $330,000.
Motion?
Second?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Page 65 through 67, electricity, Dan.
I mean, relatively self-explanatory, except the fact that, just like probably everybody in their home is seeing these increased costs that are there. We're also, still monitoring the new high school and seeing where those expenditures are. We have the estimates of what they are. There's still a lot of, kind of working through, the HVAC systems and testing and monitoring there, so that's still not giving us a, accurate kind of numbers on there, so we're still kind of working on that piece, but this projection and the increase is probably similar to,
Everybody else.
what everybody else is facing.
Questions? Can I get a motion to tentatively approve pages 65 through 67, electricity, in the amount of $1,376,743.
Motion?
Second?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Let's take a 15-minute break. I know we're all eating, and I appreciate you all being willing to work through lunch, to get through our book. We're almost done. Just a reminder, we do have executive session after we finish the budget book to go over some other things. With that being said, Dan, page 67, instructional supplies.
Yeah, instructional supplies, these are those supplies, day-to-day for the day-to-day classroom operation.
Questions? There's a motion to tentatively approve page 67, instructional supplies, in the amount of $590,771.
Motion?
Second?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. 68, student activity athletic supplies.
This is one of those opportunities to bring everything back to full circle. So interscholastic athletic programs, Farmington High School, IR, but this is decrease in shifting funding to field trips. Remember that place where we saw field trips kind of go up? This is where they had some of that money in there, and we said, no, this really needs to be over into the field trip account, so you'll see some of that accounting adjustment there.
Questions? Can I get a motion to tentatively approve page 68, student activities athletic supplies, in the amount of $307,286.
Motion?
Second?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. 69, office supplies.
Self-explanatory?
Questions? I got a motion to tentatively approve page 69, office supplies, in the amount of $70,235.
Motion?
Second?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Page 70, library supplies.
Self-explanatory?
Questions? I got a motion to tentatively approve page 70, library supplies, in the amount of $10,236.
Motion?
Second?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Page 71, testing material.
Self-explanatory, but, including PSAT and some of the other testing things that we do.
Questions? I got a motion to tentatively approve page 71, testing materials, in the amount of $45,836.
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Page 72, health supplies.
Self-explanatory.
Questions? Can I get a motion to tentatively approve page 72, health supplies, in the amount of $15,967?
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Page 73, audiovisual computer supplies.
Relatively self-explanatory, but just note that there was some restoration of funding that was cut from 24-25, and some also reviewing some current subscriptions to mitigate the larger increases in the account.
Questions? Can I get a motion to tentatively approve page 73, audiovisual computer supplies, in the amount of $179,000?
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Page 74, custodial supplies.
Self-explanatory.
Questions? Can I get a motion to approve tentatively approve page 74, custodial supplies, in the amount of $231,100?
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Page 75, gasoline.
Self-explanatory, but you'll see a pretty significant decrease there in costing, just because, once again, with the new company, even though obviously a little bit more expensive, they are doing the runs more efficiently at the main runs, and so we're seeing some savings there.
That's great. Any questions? I get a motion to tentatively approve page 75, gasoline, in the amount of $236,130.
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Page 76, textbooks.
Self-explanatory.
Questions? I get a motion to tentatively approve page 76, textbooks, in the amount of $214,279.
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Page 77, library books.
Self-explanatory.
Questions? I get a motion to tentatively approve page 77, library books, in the amount of $59,321.
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. To 79, library subscriptions.
Self-explanatory.
Questions? Motion to tentatively approve page 78, library subscriptions, in the amount of $40,847.
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Page 79, professional subscriptions.
Self-explanatory.
Any questions? I get a motion to tentatively approve page 79, professional subscriptions, in the amount of $5,708.
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Page 80, technology-related supplies.
Relatively self-explanatory, but just note that there was some restoration of funds from the cuts from the 24-25 fiscal year.
Okay. Questions? I get a motion to tentatively approve page 80, technology-related supplies, in the amount of $351,360.
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. On to equipment, Dan. Page 81 to 89.
Yeah, once again, replacement equipment, self-explanatory.
Questions? Can I get a motion to tentatively approve pages 81 through 89, replacement of equipment, in the amount of $43,314?
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Pages 90 to 98, Dan.
New equipment, same, pretty self-explanatory. Just once again, the note of restoration of funds from reductions in 24-25 fiscal year.
Questions? Can I get a motion to tentatively approve pages 90 to 98, new equipment, in the amount of $364,393?
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I was gonna do that at the end. I was gonna go back to all that.
Okay.
Sorry. That motion carries. On to page 99, in dues and fees, insurance.
So once again, this is, insurance for, not employee insurance, more of like the, building and content area in there. One of the things you'll see is the larger increase, the dollar change there is the coverage for the new high school. The old high school was valued at approximately $50 million as opposed to the, $100+ million that this one is. And they upped the value of the equipment in the building from, I believe it was $5 million in the old building to around $8 million. So that really, obviously, the value of the building and created the $45,000 increase in insurance coverage.
This is the insurance for basically running the operation, fidelity, bonding, surety coverage, all that, that kind of stuff. Any questions? Okay, can I get a motion to tentatively approve page 99, insurance other than employee benefits in the amount of $290,000?
Motion?
Second?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Page 100, memberships.
Once again, just the various professional memberships for teachers and administrators.
Any questions? Can I get a motion to tentatively approve page 100, memberships in the amount of $58,336?
Motion?
Second?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we're at the end. This is a tentative approval only. We'll have a final approval on Monday night. I know there's some questions we're going to have to follow up on, a couple small ones.
The final amount changed, so we have to just give you that.
So what are we voting on right now? Sorry, Bill.
Tentative approval of what we just approved individually. It's in the aggregate.
Okay.
So right now,
is
it's
the
the
updated.
5.6 technically.
Right.
With what, well, hold
It's-
on, no.
yeah, So, well,
So do you have a slide that shows?
yeah, we're going to show you a slide here that's going to have the updated.
There was an insurance adjustment, which we need to include on that.
Yeah, the money amounts are there, but the actual motion would be to tentatively approve page 101 for a grand total amount, and you need that amount of $83,240,983. That's the new amount.
Okay. And that's reflecting the insurance adjustments that were made when I was
Yes.
out of the room.
Yes.
Okay.
But then we will have some follow-up, so there's still some questions out there that we're going to discuss
Right.
Monday. Will we see that before Monday? Like, will we have time to review it before at the meeting, or no?
What?
Any of the other questions that we had? are
It
we
would
gonna-
be typically Monday during the day that we're doing that.
Okay.
If there are, whatever we haven't answered here, if it's something that we could send earlier in the day, we would, but typically it has, we'd have it here for, audience members and everything, and we might even add some of them to our Q&A, so we would update that.
Okay.
But I can't promise, it'll
okay.
definitely be done before the meeting, and, that usually Monday is where we go over any lingering questions and answers, and this is when you're finally approving it, because you can see how it says you're sending it to town council. We're not doing that right now. We're just tentatively approving page 101 with the new amount, and then we'll come back on Monday and answer any questions that came up here, answer any additional questions you might have. We usually have the principals come, and, you can ask them questions, and, we'll just continue through the process.
So I know that we were given a target from the town council of like 3.2. Are we going to see at all what that would look like? Like if we did go to a 3.2 or?
Well, that's a conversation we should have as a board, right?
Okay.
So if you're asking that, I would want to consider the whole board's input on whether or not
That's fine.
we need that now. My perspective on it is this, and I understand that this has been a long-going debate between philosophically how you want to handle how we perceive our role. The town council set a target. I have objected to that target for 16 years because it's not fair, frankly. I understand why they do it. I've gotten past that, but my perspective is our role at this point is to ratify the work that the district has done at this point in time, understanding this is just one point in the process. That we also know that there's going to be give and take and conversations between now and then, but I look at this as it's our role to send a message to the council that this is what it's going to, I understand what your target is, but this is what we think is going to cost to run the school district next year. And now we've got to figure that out. That's how I see what we're doing today and what we're going to do Monday. And again, the conversations don't end. I think what we can say with confidence is that last year, the town chair and I worked very hard, after our work was done, to work on a number that we were comfortable with and that the council was comfortable with. And I have that commitment from him again. So I think we've earned the trust in the community to know that we're going to do everything we can, that when the final budget is done, it's something that the council and the board can live with as we go out into the community and ask for approval at the referendum.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it.
And I understand that perspective. I have to digest it all. I'm going to take it all in, think about how I want to
nameplate.
proceed. I guess my only thought is, it seems like, to your point, it's probably just procedural, like which way it goes, but it's like, if we approve and then they lower it, we do have to come back eventually and do that work. So it's like, you know, should we know what that's gonna look like? And again, it might just be a personal, preference or outlook on the procedural ways of doing it, but that's just my perspective. But I understand what you're saying. I mean, it makes sense what you're saying too, so
Yeah, and I
let me
understand.
think about it.
I get it. I get it too. But I think to ask Kathy to do that work right now, I think is premature.
Right,
mean-
because we follow the process, like, there's multiple budget meetings here, right?
Yeah.
That lead up, so this is like the first cut, and we've already, you know, they found a
Savings.
savings. So we're, to your point, Bill, we're saying we are tentatively approving a 4.6 and follow
And then
the
go to work.
next steps and the work that will take place with yourself, and then you would potentially come back and say, this is what our final number was, or they may accept it at 4.6.
We don't know that.
We don't know.
Because because the one number I think which is critical is the number with respect to the ECS reimbursements. I think
Right.
the town really that's a number that I think we should show them. This is what we would hope to get from the state. This is what we're actually going to get. And that's why we're in the position we're in, where we're asking for 4.65. Because that might allow the town to say, okay, let's play this out a little bit over the next several months, right? Because we don't know what the legislature is going to do, right? I don't know.
But that's something we should look to do for Monday, get that idea of what
Yeah.
that slider
Oh, I
would
think
look
so.
like.
I
But
think
at
that- I
this
think we
point
should.
today,
That-
this is what we know, and, I mean, I'm comfortable personally with this to move forward.
I would open up for other conversation. I'm not
Could
trying
I,
to monopolize
yeah,
this.
I just want to add, when you're talking about a 4.65 to a 3.2, every percentage that we reduce is
$80,000.
800.
Oh, sorry.
eight-
I'm sorry.
$800,000, so.
80,000, Dan, come on,
I know.
yeah.
Let's do.
Every tenth is 80,000. Every point
Buy some more
is
stamps.
800,000.
Yeah. So you think, where in this budget would you find, 1.2 million? It's in staffing, it's in programs. Like, that's where you'd find
Right.
it. We could, talk about definitely with the town council too, how this, would affect the way we educate students in Farmington, so.
Well, that conversation is going to happen too in March. when We're meeting with them.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, again, as Nadine says, this is a process. That's how I look at this. And I'll just say, the last time we cut here, there was an expectation that that was going to be the end of it. And that turned out not to be the case. So I do not want to ever put this board in a situation again where we're cutting without having an opportunity to go defend what we think we need.
Right.
Beth?
I'm probably saying the same thing as Nadine, but we'll take the opportunity. And just to your point, I think the town council, who's our fiduciary body, and the public at this juncture need to know what we think the school district requires, keeping cuts away from, being judicious and all of that, but keeping cuts away from students and programs and without looking at a major reduction of positions. So that's where we start. And I always think of my vote at this point as we've taken what you've brought forward. We've had already some movement. We know that you've done a good job representing, what we've done in the past and then building back some of that and all of those things, all of the discussion that we had today, and acknowledging that that's what we're receiving from the superintendent's office.
Well, it's important to keep in mind too, when Kathy gets the initial numbers, that number, this year, that number was north of 6, right?
Yeah.
Almost 7. So we're now at, before we've even, we've already done the work. The superintendent's office has already done the work, and we're here, and we've done our work. So I think now we're in a good spot. For this.
Where we are right now.
Yeah, where we are right now. Any further conversation? All right, can I get a motion to tentatively approve page 101, grand total, in the amount of $83,240,983, or 4.65% increase over the 2024-2025 Farmington School District budget?
Motion?
Second?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. Before we go to executive session, I know Dan, you had some, or did you have something you wanted?
No.
Project question?
So this is in regards to the question about the 23-24 expenditure on the major projects.
great.
So I apologize for not remembering offhand, but as I perused through the presentation, it came pretty clear into focus. The majority of that answer is exactly what Kathy said, which was that we were utilizing ESSER funds as portions of that grant funding was coming to a close and we had balances, so we utilized ESSER funding to accomplish approximately $85,800 out of those projects, and that included floor machines, floor refurbishment, and some cleaning equipment there. I did misspeak. I apologize as well that the Westwood's classroom painting, which we had anticipated being able to do, a wing of that building during the summer school, was not accomplished. But again, you see that coming forward this year as the whole building when we have unoccupied buildings, so that we'll be able to accomplish all the classrooms this summer. And then there were, a few other smaller, and so that number doesn't include encumbered. So we had a project that we wanted to do some flooring at Noah Wallace, for instance, but when we went to do the project, we realized we needed to abate the flooring that was underneath the old flooring. So we had to encumber that money, and then we actually just recently did that abatement, and we'll be finishing that flooring, even though it's not 23-24 fiscal year anymore. We'll be using that encumbered amount to finish that project. And then I did see a project or two as well that we had anticipated using contractors to do, but then did in-house with a more efficiently, more cost savings on that as well, about $8,000. So I think that explains the difference in the amounts. Any other questions?
So Beth, for the ESSER funds being applied there, it just wouldn't show up in this statement then? So the line that's showing it technically, like there's a surplus, they're saying that.
Where are you looking?
I lost my spot. I was trying to find it myself.
On the June financials?
Yes, the June financials.
So depending on where we were in the process of cutting the check and actually spending the money, it would be in that ESSER line.
Okay. Okay, thanks, Sam.
I do have a quick question.
Sure.
If you could just circle back, and maybe I just misunderstood you. I think you had talked about possible savings with the roof repair Farmington High School that we didn't use, because obviously we were building a new one. You might have done some patches, but you didn't fund the whole thing. I think you were talking like $100,000 or something. Was that put into something else, or are you saving that to spread out for the new high school? Or?
So that's actually, that's capital as opposed to major projects.
Yep.
And so what we're looking to do with the capital projects is to look, there was a few projects that we're looking to then shift those into other areas to kind of really maximize the capital projects.
That's what I.
But in order for us to do that, we actually have to make, because the capital projects is overseen by the town council, we have to make the recommendation to the town council, and they would do it at a town council meeting to approve the shifting of those funds.
Thank you.
Which will eventually lower our overall capital too.
Yeah.
Which is good.
Okay, our work is not done. Kathy has to go over a few things with us in executive session, so may I get a motion to move into executive session to discuss non-affiliated contracts for the year 2025-2026 at 12:04 p.m.
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're in executive session. Okay. I need a motion to return to regular session at 12:20 p.m.
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're back in regular session. Okay, so before we adjourn, I just want to make sure we've got all of the questions that we want the district and Kathy to respond to understood for Monday. I know you had some questions, Angela, about the major projects. I think that was responded to.
Yep.
You also had a question about the other professional services line. That was in page 34. We wanted to see what the budget's going to would look like if we were at 70% and 100% ECS reimbursement. And Kathy, what are those questions can you think of? Are we missing anything?
I thought we could add to the Q&A, just
Yes.
the teacher turnover steps that we take, just so people can realize, like, this is zero-based budgeting. Then there was the question about, we have the number for 70%, we'll get the number for
100%. Wait, no, sorry. We have the number for 70%, which I think was like 360,000, but now we're going to find out what 100%.
Yes. And I have, we already answered the
The workers'
question about
comp.
workers' comp.
Good, yep.
We did the question. Okay. We did the building repair. And then what about fully funding? That's what I have. I don't know.
Anybody else have any other questions? Okay. If you think of something later that you don't have now, just let me know, and I'll just let Kathy know. Don't worry about it. That's okay. Great job, everyone. Great questions. I want to thank the district for not just, when I first started doing this, and maybe I'm saying this because this might be my last time doing this.
Might, I like
Right.
Left the door open.
You get him out of here before 12:30, and he's thinking.
We got that recorded.
What I'm saying is that the process was a lot different. We had all the information was given to us on Saturday morning. We didn't have any time really to prepare. And so it was a very clunky process, and the staff had to come and stay till 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock. And then we'd go late into the night on Monday night or into Tuesday. And that's because we didn't have enough information to do the work we needed to do. So the fact that we are in a place now where we get the special services budget 2 weeks in advance, where we get the technology budget, where we get all that stuff in advance, is a credit to Kathy's leadership in terms of making and respecting our time. So, yeah, we did a big thing today. It was important that we did this work, but our work is far from done. I want to thank you all for your preparation and your questions. It was really thoughtful and excellent questions. If I can figure out a way to get us to forever stamps, I will do that.
Now I feel like.
Other than that, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.